My name is Jan Gonzales. I am a community education supervisor with the University of California Cooperative Extension. I'm based in the San Diego County office. Next slide. We are really glad that you're here. This is the 2025 Goldspotted Oak Borer Symposium, obviously held virtually. I'd like to introduce some folks that are behind the scenes assisting me this morning. We have Julie Clark. She is a colleague based in the Ventura County office. She's going to be monitoring the Q&A and the chat box. And then Randall Oliver is also with us, and he's with the state, the UCANR state IPM program, and he's based out of the Orange County office. And he'll be assisting with a few different posts and such. So I want to extend a huge thank you to them. I appreciate their support. Also, way behind the scenes is Robert Padilla. He is our digital media supervisor in the San Diego County office. And he'll be on with us just for a little bit this morning, making sure there's no major technical issues and getting us rolling. I do want to point out in the chat box, there's a link to download to access the program for this morning. Kind of gives the order of how things are running. Just a few, I guess, things I want to point out with it, not necessarily changes, but Bea is delivering the second and third subject matter, addressing those topics. So I think she's combining that into one presentation. Um, and then Joelene, Tamm, our one of our latter presentations, she got called up to training. So she's not going to be able to present personally, but she did deliver us her presentation. And so I will be delivering that in her on her behalf this morning. Please go ahead and enter throughout the day, enter any questions you have in the Q&A. If you want them, if you're addressing a particular presenter, if you start out your question with that person's name, so we know how to direct your question specifically. That would be very helpful. Please keep all your questions in the Q&A. Save the comments in the chat for just that comments. We would appreciate that. So if we're unable to get to all of the questions today, we'll have them in one place and can direct them to our presenters so we can get you good answers later on. All right, next screen. So I just said the Q&A versus the chat. Is continuing education approved both with the California Department of Pesticide Regulations and the Western Chapter of International Society of Arboriculture. I'll get into some more details on that in just a bit. There's also going to be a closing survey, a feedback evaluation survey. I really do want to emphasize up front how critical that is, that we get your input for that, especially at this phase in our programming. We really do hope you'll take a few minutes and quickly give us your feedback and input. It helps us not only report to our funders, but also to, for future program requests and for obviously improving our program for you. And then for those of you who are interested in obtaining continuing education, whether it's for one of the professional organizations or as say, a volunteer master gardener, that quiz link will be accessible to you later on this morning as well. Okay, next slide. Okay, here's some of the detail real quickly with the continuing education, 4 hours of other for DPR, and then 4 hours to, or 1.5 to 4 hours, depending on your category for ISA. There have been some questions from some of our master gardener volunteers. We will make sure that you get continuing education credit as well. The requirements to obtain credit in that additional survey is your name, email. Let us know which organization you would like continuing education. And there's a fraud statement, which I'll go over in just a second in the next slide. And then the exam, you'll need to, at a minimum, have 80% or better score. That's 10 questions correct out of 12. Next slide. Oh, and obviously, if you're Master Gardener, there's not a license number that you need to input, so don't worry about that. DPR specifically asks for an acknowledgement of this fraud statement that's here. And so that will be part of your quiz too, if you've read and accept these conditions. So, or this acknowledgement that it is fraud to misrepresent or somebody or take the test for somebody else. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that this will be required if you're looking for continuing education. Next slide. All right, we do have a set of 3 questions that we would like to administer real quickly here on screen now as a pre-poll, and then towards the end of the webinar to see if our results improve any. Let me go ahead and bring those up. And then I believe you may have to scroll down to get to see all of the questions. Launch. So there is 3 questions. And if you can go ahead and select your answers. Okay. I'm not sure if you can see the results on screen or not.
I don't see them.
You don't see them. Okay, thank you. I don't know how to make them visible, but thank you. I'm not going to tell you the answers because we're going to be taking this again in the end, but this really helps us. I'll just give everybody like 30 more seconds. If need be, just go ahead and scroll down.
Jen, you should be seeing the number of people that have answered. Can you see that at least?
Yes, I think so. Yep. That's good. We're going to go ahead and move on. So thank you very much for participating. We appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now. Oh, here, I can share results real quickly. I'll do that. So there you should be able to see the results now, hopefully. We'll just leave this on for a few seconds.
See them.
Yep. Okay. Again, we appreciate your input with that. And I'm going to close it now. All right. Oops. How did we get to this one? Can we go back? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
That other slide, I forgot to delete it.
Oh.
Just one more thing. One more thing before I turn it over to our first presentation. We are recording this webinar. The recording will likely not be processed and uploaded until after the new year, just because, due to prior commitments and deadlines that we have before the holidays. But we did want to let you know that it will be recorded. continuing education will not be available with the recorded viewing or viewing the recording, but that is happening.
And several
But
people have reported that they can't open the program link. It opened fine on my end, so I'm not sure. I've reposted it a couple of times, but
all
um,
right.
they're still not able in some cases to open that.
I apologize. I don't have any other link that I can. I'll try and work on it when I'm off screen. Um, my apologies. So our first speaker is Kim Corella. She's a forest pathologist with the Forest Entomology and Pathology program with CALFIRE. And she's been working on gold-spotted oak borer since the beginning of the program here in 2008, 2009. So she's going to talk to us a little bit about the introduction to gold-spotted oak borer, and I am going to go ahead and turn it on over to her now. Kim?
Thank you, Jen. Let me share my screen. Okay, so I'm gonna go over, as Jen mentioned, then the biology and introduction, and that sort of thing. So, oh no, let's see. Okay, so the gold-spotted oak borer it's a flat-headed borer, and the scientific name is Agralis aerogutatus. And its name gold-spotted oak borer is because it has gold spots on the back of its elytra. It attacks oaks, and it's a borer. So it's very easy to remember if you think about it that way. And it was first found to be associated with killing trees in San Diego in 2008, but the mortality, oak mortality was seen way before that. It just wasn't sure what was causing that dieback of those oak trees. So GSOB was most likely found attacking trees early in 1990s. It was probably in the state. We just didn't associate it with those trees being killed until 2008. It is found it's native to Southeast Arizona, southern Mexico, northern Guatemala. That's where it's native. It is not native to California. That's why it is a problem here. And since its discovery in 2008, it's killed more than 200,000 oak trees. And that's probably an underestimate of how many trees it has killed. So it is a big problem. So that's why we're learning about it today. So as I mentioned, GSOB is native to Southeast Arizona, the Sky Islands, where it's really not an issue. It's native there. Those trees evolve with this insect. It causes some background mortality, which is needed for forests to regenerate and change over time. But how it got from Southeast Arizona to San Diego it did not fly. This is the Mojave Desert. There's not a continuous oak vegetation system through here, and it does not fly that far. And I'll talk more about that later. But the most likely way that this insect was introduced from Southeast Arizona into San Diego was through the movement of infested firewood, because there's this road, Highway 10 and Highway I-8 that goes directly into San Diego. So it's most likely multiple loads of firewood are brought in, and over time that population became established. So from being introduced into San Diego, we think in the early 1990s, 35 years later, this is the distribution of GSOB in California right now. And a lot of these outlier infestations are most likely caused from the spread of infested firewood. So it is now in 6 counties in California, with the most recent one being Ventura County. And this is the Cal Invasive website. If you go to the website link down here or type in Cal Invasives, you can see this website and get the distribution of GSOB. So once this insect becomes established, it does cause a lot of mortality. It changes the ecosystems over time. These trees don't die quickly. They take a few years to succumb to the infestation of GSOB, but once they do, you can see here the change in the ecosystem. This is a riparian area. It changes, obviously, the structure of the ecosystem. And this is a campground in San Diego County. So it does cause a lot of mortality, a lot of devastating effects, and ecosystem issues. So we wanted to go over the life cycle of GSOB, know how this spreads, how it reproduces, and that'll help with the management strategies and techniques that Bea is going to talk about. So the adult is on the right-hand side right here, and it's probably about maybe 3/4 of an inch, not very big. You probably won't ever see it in the field. When it emerges, it flies up into the crown, and there it feeds on the leaves. Doesn't cause any damage to the tree by feeding on the leaves. It needs to ingest those resources to become, to have their ovaries mature, and that way it can mate. So once it does feed in the leaves and mate successfully, it lays eggs on the bark of the trees. So it lays it in clusters. They can lay 200 to 300 eggs, but they're in small little clusters, as seen here in the top left. So you have 2 or 3 or individual ones laid separately, and they lay them in the bark crevices of the tree in protective areas, so they don't wash off with the rain. They're not impacted by the solar radiation of the sun beating down on that trunk. So they try to protect them, and you're really not going to see these either in the field. These are about the size of a pin tip. They're very, very tiny. And so this part of the life cycle, you probably won't see either of these two. If you're lucky, you'll see this adult, but I've never seen it in the field of all the years I've been working on GSOB. So once you have these eggs that are laid, then that egg, those larvae emerges from that egg, starts to bore through the bark of the tree, and then it feeds in the phloem layer until it gets to the cambium, and then feeds in the phloem and cambium layer, where it has a lot of nutrients and sugars, where it can grow over time. And it goes through 4 larval stages, which means it just gets bigger and bigger through each larval stage until it becomes this 4th inch star larvae, which is the mature one. And it's about 1 inch or so long. And the way to tell if this larvae is GSOB is they have these 2 black pinchers at the end of the larvae. So here's the head and the feeding mouth parts, and then it's got these 2 pinchers at the end. Because when you chop into trees, sometimes you see a lot of larvae, or you're not sure what it is. And to tell if it is a GSOB larvae, it is thin. It has that flat head at the beginning, and then those 2 black pinchers at the end. So once it's maturing, it feeds throughout here, creates these spaghetti-shaped galleries. A lot of bark beetles and wood borers will have specific gallery patterns. You can tell from the gallery what type of insect it is. With GSOB, it's just a spaghetti shape. It's like someone took some spaghetti and just threw it against the wall. So you'll see that, and that's kind of the distribution pattern of the GSOB larvae galleries. Once it's done feeding on and matured through those 4 larval stages, it'll come back out from the cambium, bore back out through the phloem, and make this pupal chamber right here, where it forms this hairpin. It folds back on itself, and it will stay there throughout the fall, and there it goes through other changes to become an adult. So this larvae are feeding throughout the summer, and then it will bore back out here and make this pupal chamber, and that they do this in the fall, the winter until the next spring. So here is that hairpin formation right here. It folds back on itself, and then see how close it is to the bark, because when this becomes an adult, the adult doesn't have the mouth parts to chew a lot far to get out of that bark. So it wants to be really close to the exit of the bark so it can emerge without using all of its resources. So it's really close to the bark. Once it forms this hairpin larvae, it'll turn into this pupa, and then that will turn into an adult, looking like an adult here, and then here's the adult. So you'll have this adult right here in that pupal chamber, and then it'll chew its way out. You see its little head chewing its way out, and and it will form this typical D-shaped exit hole, which is about 3 millimeters in size. They're very small, and it's D-shaped because the back of the adult is flat. So here's the flat part, and then this stomach, the abdomen is round. So it chews just enough for it to squeeze out of that hole, and that's why it's D-shaped. So those are the characteristic symptoms we look for, or signs we look for GSOB on trees, among other ones, which I'll get into, are these D-shaped exit holes. Now, there are a lot of holes on a tree. Some are round, some are big D-shaped, some are weird looking. But so it's not as easy to finding a D-shaped exit hole on a tree. There are different holes that are the same size, but round. So it can be kind of confusing. But so don't be discouraged if you go to a tree and you get confused by looking at holes, because it is hard and it takes time to get that eye to find those D-shaped exit holes at GSOB. So I just wanted to show this because it can be confusing. You make it sound really easy, but it's not. So the way GSOB kills these trees, as I mentioned earlier, it takes a few years for these trees to die and to succumb to GSOB. And that's due to the repeated feeding of the tree over time. So you can see on the left-hand side here, these pictures of the debarked firewood. The bark has been removed, and all you see on here are these black gallery patterns. Those are the GSOB galleries. And that where that GSOB is fed, it disrupts that vascular system. So the tree is unable to take up water and nutrients down from the leaves. So that part of the tree is unable to uptake or have any nutrient source. So that part of the vascular system has failed. And then repeated attacks over time cause that tree to become girdled and no longer able to uptake nutrients from water, so it dies back. You can see here a cross section, all these black sections here are the cambium that has been disrupted, which is seen over here on the left-hand side. So GSOB takes 1 year to complete its life cycle, to go from an adult to laying eggs back to an adult. And insects are ectotherms, so they need heat for their development. And they accumulate heat like a piggy bank. So once a certain temperature is reached, anything above that, that heat is kind of stored in the insect's development like a bank. And then once it reaches a certain number of those accumulated temperatures, then it can be emerged. Then that's when the adults will emerge. So with GSOB, that baseline temperature is 50 degrees Fahrenheit, we think, and this is based on similar borers such as emerald ash borer. And then after about 400 to 450 growing degree days, temperature days after it's reset 50-degree baseline temperature, then that first GSOB adult will emerge. And then the peak population will emerge after those degree days are about 1,000 degree days. So that usually occurs, the peak emergence usually occurs end of June, beginning of July, around there. And the first emergence of GSOB is usually in May, but that varies on elevation, and I'll get into that. And that's usually on these degree days, right? Because you're at higher elevation, you'll have less of the days that are above 50 degrees, so it'll take longer for those insects to mature. Whereas if you're at lower elevation, you have hotter temperatures, and those degree days accumulate more rapidly. So you'll have different emergence patterns, and they can emerge later in the year based on this degree day and the elevation that you're at. And knowing this is very helpful in management efforts. So in 2008, I just want to show this tabular view, this graphic view of the life cycle. In 2008, when they were first studying GSOB, this is what the pattern of when the adults would emerge, egg laying, larval feeding, and their life cycle was thought to be. But after 30 years of working with this insect, Jocelyn Tamm came up with was seeing it later and later. So this is more the distribution with climate change. Things are a little different than we originally thought. So they still emerge in May, but they do go later into the year depending on your elevation. So at lower elevations, they can still emerge in November. You have larval feeding throughout the year. So some of these things have changed based on our knowledge and on the climate changing over time as well. So I wanted to show that. So what do GSOB feed on? Well, they feed on oak trees. They prefer California black oak and coast live oak. They do attack canyon live oak, but that is the less susceptible species. And on the right-hand side here is a distribution of those 3 tree species on the West Coast. And it's about 15 million acres. So this insect has the potential to spread and infest oak trees and throughout the West Coast. And as I mentioned before, that this insect has been found at low elevation at sea level and has been found at 8,000 feet. So it can mature. The cold at that temperature, that height, doesn't seem to affect, doesn't kill it enough to stop its movement. So it can spread throughout the West Coast, has the potential. All right, so how do you know your tree has GSOB? So you want to look for symptoms of GSOB or signs of GSOB. And that's a good distinction because a symptom is just the tree's expression that something's wrong with it. Something's going on with the tree. You don't know what it is, but there's something's going on with the tree. So one symptom of a GSOB attack is looking at the crown. These insects prefer larger diameter oak trees, but they can attack trees that are about 8 inches and greater. So you'll see a healthy tree here that has this really nice and green. That's a good tree. Doesn't look anything wrong with that tree. It's a good tree. So the crown symptoms look fine for this tree. If you look at this tree, you can see that the crown is obviously much thinner. The leaves are smaller. There's twig dieback. It's really not a good looking tree. So if you see this tree, it could be GSOB, it could be construction damage. There could be a lot of stuff going on with this tree, but that's something to home in on when you're looking for GSOB or suspect GSOB in an area. Look for trees that have some crown symptoms. They look thin. They don't look good. It's not a good looking tree. Obviously, if you see a dead tree, look for that as well. Another symptom to look for GSOB are trees retaining their leaves. Well, coast live oaks retain their leaves because they're evergreen, but dying quickly and having these brown leaves held onto the canopy. That is something that this tree died very quickly. And that's one thing to look at as well. It doesn't necessarily mean that that tree was killed by GSOB, but something is wrong with that tree and to look at it. And as you can see in this picture, these other trees look very thin, right? So they're not green, that lustrous dark green color. They don't have a thick crown. So something's going on in this area and we're not really sure what's going on. If you come up to here, maybe GSOB, may not, but something to hone in on. That's a symptom to look at. Same with black oak as well. That this trees will have the dieback. They'll have thinner, smaller leaves. Again, you have these leaves being retained. And with the black oak, the trees, they obviously lose their leaves in the fall. And that process of losing leaves is an active process. It's not just, it doesn't just happen. So there's a lot of enzymes and chemicals that need to happen to cause those leaves to fall off. So if you see a tree like this in the fall that is retaining its leaves, check that tree out as well. That's also a crown symptom that something could be going on. And you'll see these trees retaining their leaves during the year as well. So that's just a crown symptom to look in on. And again, GSOB likes to attack trees that are larger diameter, but they will attack smaller diameter trees. Another symptom to look at is staining. This can be caused by many factors, other insects, pathogens, abiotic factors, but it's another symptom that something's going on with that tree and to check it out. So the crown symptoms and the staining symptoms is something to look at. There's something under this staining that causes that vascular system to be disrupted, that water is accumulating there and being pushed out through the bark cracks to cause that staining. So something's going on in that vascular system that needs to be checked out. And another symptom of attack is woodpecker feeding. The type of woodpecker feeding matters. If you have sapsucker woodpeckers, they're a lot different than these than just acorn woodpeckers, or these woodpeckers that are flicking off the bark and looking for insect larvae that are right underneath the bark. We see this a lot on bark beetle trees and trees that are affected by wood borers or other insects. The woodpeckers are trying to get that protein source and are flicking off that bark. That's another symptom that something is going on with that tree, and to kind of hone in on it. So you can kind of see the pattern of kind of what trees to look at for GSOB. So once you go to a tree and you look at it and you see the crown doesn't look well, you see possibly see some staining. The staining is usually seen in the fall or the spring when you have rain and those trees are actively uptaking water. That's usually when you see staining. If you see that, maybe you'll see woodpecker feeding and you go examine the tree. If you're able to chop back that bark around those staining areas, do that. Make sure you can do that. If it's in your own tree, or you get permission, you can chop back that bark. And if you see this gallery pattern that I mentioned, then that's a clear sign that that is GSOB. The galleries may look like this. They may look like this. You'll see these dark black galleries that are scattered. They really don't have a pattern to it in the cambium layer of the tree. If you see a larvae and you see those pinchers at the end or some hairpin formation, then that is a sign that's GSOB. That is 100% GSOB. You know that tree is being attacked by GSOB. Also, a more easily recognizable sign of GSOB, you don't have to destructively sample the tree, which is probably preferred, is to look for these D-shaped exit holes that I mentioned. They're very small. They're 3 millimeters, so about the size of the letters on the quarter. And they're D-shaped, but they can be in crevices. They can be misshapen. They're really tricky to find. Like there's one here, and see how hard that is to see. So they're really difficult to see. We make it look easy during these presentations, but it is really tricky to see. You have to spend a little bit of time looking at the tree, the bark, getting a flashlight to make sure it's what you're looking at, and getting a ruler, some sort of measurement to make sure the size is correct. So if you see these D-shaped exit holes, that's a sign that the insect has emerged and has affected that tree. And some trees are affected more than other trees. You'll have these amplifier trees, and you'll see these one trees in the forest, and they're really attacked. And these account for a lot of the insect population. And knowing this is also will be an effective management strategy, which Bea will talk about. So some trees are attacked more than others. They probably have different endophytic characteristics, different genetics that make these trees more tasty to the GSOB and able to reproduce more readily in there. So, and just to show how many insects can be in an amplifier tree, this was some bark that was removed from an amplifier tree. It's like 3 foot by 3 foot, maybe a section. Just a colleague picked up some of these bark pieces, threw them in the bucket, and wanted just to see how many adults would emerge from the bark of the tree. Because remember, GSOB is not in the wood, right? It's in the bark. You can use firewood as long as the bark's removed. It's in that bark. That's what you want to manage of the tree. They're not in the wood. So I want to just make that clear, because that can be misunderstood for some people. So we took the bark, put it in that bucket, and then after a few months, about 200 adults emerged. So from this little section of amplifier tree, we got 200 adults. So you can see how the spread of infested firewood because easily spread this insect. These insects on the left, this is how we tell how far they fly. We hook them to pretty much like an insect treadmill. They fly around in a circle, and we measure how long they can fly, and that corresponds to distance. And they fly maybe at the very most, if they really want to, about a mile. But usually they're really lazy. They either stay in the same tree or they go to the next tree or just kind of hop around from tree to tree. They don't fly long distances. So the long distance spread is from infested firewood. And you can see if you have an amplifier tree, how easy that insect could be spread and how many adults could be spread into a new area. And this is how we got to here, is where we have all these new locations that are becoming infested. Because here it started in San Diego County, and then it spread throughout Southern California. And really, we want to try to protect this insect from moving. We don't want it to move any further. We want to prevent it because oaks really are a keystone species. You guys probably know how valuable they are. They support so many life forms, more than any other tree genus in North America. The acorns provide a food source for vertebrate species. They're really vital food source and tradition for Native Americans. Their leaves provide food for caterpillars. Insects support, this is crucial for the food web. They support a lot of different insects and vertebrates and species. This is just, I could go on and on, but there's just a lot of benefits that these oak trees do contribute to the ecosystem. And so really with this loss or decline of oaks from GSOB, it's really adversely affecting the biodiversity of these ecosystems. You have loss of habitat and food resources that affects the shading and sensitive riparian areas. And also this dead wood, dead oaks can increase the fuel loading because you're having that vertical fuel become horizontal, which can change the fuel loading and change to the severity of wildfires depending on the state that the wildfire goes through. So that's a huge impact, and the loss of aesthetic value is also a concern. So with forests, you obviously have that natural mortality, background mortality, a couple percent. You need to have trees die for those forests to change and to recover and to have new seedlings germinate and grow. But this mortality we're seeing here is obviously not natural and is obviously concerning. And that's why we're here today learning about GSOB. If you do see some of those signs and symptoms I talked about, you can go to the gsob.org website. There's all the information we're discussing here is on this website. There's a reporting tool on here where you can report a suspected GSOB tree. And even if you're not sure, report it, because we rather have a report that's not GSOB than someone finds GSOB and we're like, well, I don't know if it is. Maybe I shouldn't report it. Just report it. I get those reports. Jan gets those reports. We'll look through them. And then if we think it's concerning, we'll go out and look at it. And if it's not, we can let you know as well. So we rather know than not. Here's that Invasive website, as I mentioned before. I'll just type in Invasive and you can bring it up and type in GSOB and it will come up and you'll see this distribution pattern. It's also on the gsob.org website. And with that, I think my part is done. I'll take any questions if there's time.
Thank you, Kim. Everyone, please, if you have questions, we have a few minutes. We'll have to answer them online or later. Jan, please let us know when we need to segue. And for everyone who has a question, please enter them into the Q&A and not the chat. There are a few in the chat that we'll start off with, since I don't think we made this clear at the beginning of the symposium. So Kim, do we know characteristics of why certain trees become amplifiers?
I think we're still trying to figure that out. It most likely has to do with the size of the tree, the genetics of the tree, and that makeup, because whether certain trees can become infested is really complex depending on what microorganisms they have in there, whether it can support reproduction and feeding and that sort of thing. So I think we're still trying to figure that out. But yeah, so it's more complex than just kind of whether it's a large tree or it's a certain species. It's depending on the genetics, possibly the size, and the content of the phloem that has enough sugars and other things that are going on. So I don't think we know quite yet what's going on, but we're hopefully going to have more insight into that hopefully in the near future.
Great. And a related question would be about resistance. So would those same elements you just described probably apply as the research continues as to why some species are more resistant than others?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, exactly. And some trees, depending on their wood characteristics, such as white oaks versus red oaks. So white oaks have tyloses, so they can plug up their vascular system if you have an infection, whereas red oaks, the new vascular system doesn't have that. So that might be a part of it. The wood is more dense in white oak. So there could be various characteristics as that could be going on, yeah, causing what species of trees could be more resistant, and whether the tree is healthier trees can probably fight this off a little bit better than a sick tree, obviously. So that probably has something to do with it. GSOB attacks healthy trees, but as I mentioned, it takes a period of years for them to die back. So it's really complex as to what resistant mechanisms there are. It's not like what we know of right now. They don't have like an immune system where the more they get attacked by GSOB, the more resistant they become on antibodies like we have. It's a little different in trees. So right now we don't know if there's a resistant response, but there could be something going on with the endophytes or microorganisms or the health of the tree and those genetic makeup that could be more resistant. We just don't know. That's a long-term project, and we're working on it, but I don't know the answers right now.
Okay. We do, thank you. We do have a couple of questions about treatments and recovery of infested areas, but we'll get into that later today.
Yes.
But Kim, oh, I see Jan's back. Are we out of time, Jan?
We should probably move on. Maybe one more question for now, and then Kim, if you have a chance, you can look at the Q&A
Sure.
and answer questions directly there, or we can, like I said, anything we don't get to during the symposium, we will make sure that we address and follow up communications. But maybe one more, Julie, and then we should probably move on.
Sure. Does humidity, rain levels, anything affect the populations?
There was a risk map done by the net in 2015 where they modeled the spread of GSOB naturally, and they used temperature and precipitation, and they found that the high temperature, and they did split the years up into quarters. So the quarter of the year that had the lowest precipitation seemed to be the most effective correlation for GSOB, that they attack the trees. So that's what they use for risk. But other than that, I don't think there's been any other work done on precipitation or humidity on GSOB reproduction. Joelene, she's not here, but she may have more information, or Bea, but that's what I know of right now. But there has been that risk map, and I can share that in the Q&A, because I know there was a question about risk map spread and that sort of thing.
Great. Well, Kim, I can't thank you enough. Really appreciate that introduction. I know it might have been review for some of you, but new information for others too. So we appreciate you spending time on that. Next up, we have Dr. Beatriz Nobua-Behrmann. She is the Urban Forestry and Natural Resources Advisor based out of, well, for Orange and Los Angeles counties with UC Cooperative Extension. And she's already got her slides up, so I'll turn it over to her. Thank you, Bea.
Thanks, Jen. Hopefully you can see the correct.
Yes, it all looks good.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, folks. Well, good morning. And so what I will be covering today is the best management practices, what we've been learning through all these years of trying to deal with the GSOB infestations. And as Jen said at the beginning, I had 2 topics assigned, which was best management practices and infested wood management. And this will be, lumped together in just one presentation. So let's get to it. Just a quick roadmap. We're going to talk about detection and monitoring, prevention, some of the management tools like amplifier tree removal, how to manage infested wood, our options for chemical treatments, whatever we know right now for biological treatment, and we'll talk a little bit about replanting. So let's get into it right now. And so I want to start with the importance of monitoring for this pest and any other pest, right? So for any management program, monitoring is the main thing. A lot of people tend to quickly go into, okay, we're going to treat the trees, we're going to do this or that, but you really can't make any of those management decisions if you don't have a clear idea, a clear view of what's going on. How many trees are infested? How infested are they? We're going to be making this management decisions kind of in a tree by tree case. So you need to know what are the, which trees are infested, how infested, what's the health state of those trees, so you can make the right management decisions and you can have a more successful management procedure, right? Management plan. So really, when we think about how are we going to use our budget, and I know many times that's limited, really investing in monitoring is very important. That way you can make the better decisions, and in the long run, you're going to end up with lower costs, right? If you just don't know what you have and you just end up trying to treat everything, you're probably gonna miss the right kind of treatment for the right kind of tree. You're gonna put way more chemicals into the environment that need it, and you're probably not gonna have like an efficient management of the pest. So when we think about detection, the first thing that comes to people's mind is trapping. So for GSOB, we have flight interception or flight intercept traps, like this one in the left side of the slide. So this is a purple prism trap. These traps are not really very effective, right? There's no lure for GSOB. And so they basically just catch whatever GSOB just happens to randomly fly into that purple object that is near an infested tree. It doesn't sort of lure the beetles into the trap. So some people use them, but really it is not a very effective way to know if you have GSOB in your area or not. There's this year that my colleague Joelene Tamm tried this band. It's called a sticky tree band trap that is used for spongy moths that you can see on the right side. And she put it in an infested tree and collected 45 GSOB within 3 months. So this seems to be a very promising way of trapping, but this is basically trapping mostly the beetles that are coming out of that tree, right? So it is something that we need to test a little bit more and understand a little bit better how can we use it for management, but it's probably something that we can mostly use to track if the beetles are emerging already, and to track if you, let's say you treated a tree and see if there's more GSOB coming out of that tree the next season. But I don't think this would be our panacea for detection, right? So with that, I think our best bet for detection is visual inspections. This not only allows you to get GSOB presence data, so you know if GSOB is in the area, but also as we do this, we gather tree health information that we're gonna be using for our management purposes. So for the visual inspections, we can either tackle as we're gonna go see if there's presence of GSOB, and in that case, probably our best bet is to go and look for those trees that are showing signs of decline that Kim was showing, like maybe some of the canopy decline. Those are kind of easier to spot from a distance. And first go and check on those trees and see if we see that D-shaped exit hole in the trunk. Once we determine that we want to take some kind of more management action, our visual inspections ideally will go and check on every tree, because as Kim mentioned, it takes 3 or 4 years for a tree since it gets infested for the first time until it starts showing this signs of decline. So once we determine that GSOB is in an area, you want to go and check even those trees that look fairly healthy to see if maybe they are in the beginning of an infestation. Ideally, you would check every tree every time, but I'm telling you about going for these declined trees first, especially when you're looking into a forest stand where you probably don't have, like most people don't have the personnel and funding capacity to at the beginning go check on every tree. But if you can, if you have the resources to do that, or especially if you have trees that are in a more managed area, it's a lot easier to access them. Please check the trunks of every tree once a year so you can just make sure that, see if you have them, make sure that if your trees get infested, you catch that infestation as early as possible, and then you can start thinking about your management plan. So we're going to be looking for these D-shaped exit holes, right? This is the hole that the adults leave when they leave the tree. But this is our main sign of infestation. Of course, the other one that we have is the other unequivocal sign is the galleries under the bark. But our first approach will be to go look for these D-shaped exit holes because this is the one that is a non-invasive technique, right? So usually when the beetles initially attack the tree, they start within the first 2 meters or 6 feet, right? And so this chart that you see here is showing the density of holes versus the height within the bole or the main trunk. And this is in meters, so for those of you who didn't grow up with meters, so 2 meters is about 6 feet. And what you can see, so each of these lines and groups of points is a different kind of tree. And in this case, they're separated by the sort of health of the tree, right? So the circles are dead and dying trees, so trees with a lot of decline, and the squares and triangles are trees that have various levels of dieback, but they're a little bit healthier. And as you can see, in all of the cases, we can see holes within the first 2 meters or the first 6 feet of the tree, which is great for us because that's basically the part that we can see if we're standing in front of the tree. And of course, for those trees that are healthier, the density of holes is lower because, you know, probably that's why they're healthier, because they don't have that many beetles. For the trees that are more like less healthy or more in decline, they have more density of beetle holes, and actually the most of that is within the first 6 feet of the bowl. So this is showing us that just going and doing visual inspections on the first 6 feet of the bowl of the trees is an effective way of determining if the tree is infested and assigning a level of infestation to that tree. Yes, of course, we can find more GSOB higher up in the trunk, but at least we know that if the tree is infested, and especially if it's heavily infested, we will definitely see the exit holes in the first 6 feet, which is great for us. So the next thing that we're going to be looking at is, okay, how many exit holes does that tree have, right? We're trying to determine how infested it is. So generally, we consider a lightly infested if it has 1 to 10 exit holes. Between 10 and 25 exit holes, that's a moderate, and more than 25 exit holes is considered a heavily infested. But one thing that we learned is that usually once the tree is in level 2 or 3, those are way less likely to be saved with insecticide treatments. So that's why you want to monitor, you know, regularly, because really, if you decide that you want to try to save an infested tree, your best chances are when you catch it early, when you only have less than 10 exit holes. For moderate, there is a chance maybe you can save it, and once it has more than 25 exit holes, that tree is not a tree that you can save or try to save with insecticides. For the bark symptoms, that Kim already mentioned, that we have this staining that happens because we have damage in the vascular system underneath. We also have some sort of rating. So low would be 1 to 5 stains. Sometimes you don't even find any stainings and you still have the exit holes. So this is not, you know, the one and only thing. Moderate between 6 and 10, heavy if it has more than 10 stains, and it's a severe or already you can just consider that tree dead. Once you start seeing this bark cracking is when you have this horizontal cracks on the bark and the bark is peeling off, that tree is dead. So again, once a tree is showing excessive staining or cracks in the bark, that tree is probably on its way out and way unlikely to be brought back into a healthy state. And as I said, we also want to know that the bark symptoms are symptoms of tree health, and the canopy is kind of our best way to assess the health of the tree. So whenever we do surveys for GSOB, we definitely go and assign a canopy rating to the tree. And what we do when we do surveys of the whole grove, we actually survey every tree in the grove and assign a canopy health rating to every tree, whether it is infested or not. Because even when we want to try to do any kind of preventative treatments, our canopy health is also going to tell us what kind of thing we can do and what kind of thing we cannot do. So generally, we look into how much thinning or dieback we have within that tree. So, you know, a healthy tree has a full canopy, like zero leaf loss. We can have trees with minor thinning. That's sort of what we tend to find the most. We know that usually oaks here in Southern California, are affected by drought and other things beyond GSOB. So in natural oaks, a lot of the times we tend to find this minor thinning to be the most common situation. Then we can have moderate thinning between 25 and 50% of leaf loss, and we start getting severely infested, severe dieback when we have this more than 50 leaf loss, and of course a dead tree will be the worst case scenario. So, and again, as the trees progress through this crown damage, there's less the likelihood of being saved by insecticide treatments declines a lot. I think, once the tree doesn't have enough leaves to pull up anything or to sort of create enough energy to bounce back, it's the decision is more related to removing that tree than to treating that tree. And as I said, leaf loss can be attributed to other factors. So this should be, together with looking at the bark and looking at the presence of GSOB exit holes in order to attribute this, canopy decline to a GSOB infestation. So when we're monitoring for management, what we want to do is a systematic surveying and record keeping of what's going on with each tree. I like to actually tag the trees, or at least geotag the trees, just to be able to come back the next year and see how each tree progresses. The surveys, ideally, we'll do them once a year during fall and winter. That's after the emergence season ended. And every time I recommend to record the number of exit holes that you observed, both the total exit holes and how many new exit holes you have. Because if you are doing some kind of management, if you are not getting too many exit holes the next year, that's a really, really good sign that your management is working. And for that, what we do is we mark the exit holes with either a paint marker or a forestry crayon, somehow, something that then we can just see that exit hole and say, okay, that one we found it last year. That's not a new one. Let's see if there's any new ones around. And as I said, canopy rating updating each year will really help you, keep track of the tree health, how the tree health progressive throughout the years. So when we think about management, the first thing, the main way we can prevent new infestation is exclusion. So this is the basically limiting the movement of firewood that could be infested, right? We know that GSOB moves long distances in firewood. It's very tempting to go and get this cheap oak firewood, but really limiting the movement of firewood and work with your community to get awareness of this is super important, because that is the first line of defense, right? Is not getting GSOB in your area. For that, education of the public and your clients is key. So as much as you can, spread that message of not moving firewood, of looking for your trees and finding GSOB infestations early is super, super important. Depending on if you work with clients, you can educate your clients. If you are a city or a municipality, you can, educate the community so people are aware. We're going to dive into the management tools. And I want to give a few introduction slides to this. Just to consider that, as I said before, management is made in a tree-by-tree case, and is very site dependent, right? Like what you might consider something a risk that you cannot take within an area which is a manicure area, or the tree that is in the front yard versus what works in a tree in a oak stand might be might be different, right? So keep that in mind. Like, these are general guidelines, but as you make your decisions, you have to keep in consideration your site characteristics. And keep in mind that treatments are generally restricted just healthy and high value trees. And what's a high value tree might vary again with the site. If it's a front yard tree, that's most probably almost always a high value tree because that's the only tree you have, right? Versus a high stand, an oak stand. And we're gonna do a very quick overview of the anatomy of a tree, just to understand how GSOB affects the tree, right? So we have the outer bark. This is the bark, the part that protects the tree from the outside world. And then next under that, we have the phloem. That's the vascular system that transports the sugar from the leaves to the rest of the tree. After that, we have the next layer. It's called the cambium layer. That is basically the layer of cells where the tree starts growing, right? The tree makes more phloem and more xylem out of that cambium layer. And then we have the xylem, or the sapwood, which is the vascular system that transports water from the roots to the rest of the tree. And then in the middle, we have the heartwood, and that's dead wood. And just so we know, GSOB is within this first layers, right? It's mostly within the cambium, the phloem, and the bark. And sometimes it just digs a little bit into the xylem, but we know that it's not present in the heartwood. So as long as when we're managing our infested wood, we want to keep that in mind, because the heartwood is something that we can save and use, but the vascular part and the living parts and the bark, that's the part that is most that's where you're gonna find the GSOB. So, and the other thing that I always like to review with you is the disease triangle that we use in IPM, right? In order to have a disease or to have a problem in your plant, you need the 3 parts of the triangle. You need the pathogen, or in this case, the beetles, right? The pest. You need the right environment that favored it to happen, and you need the right host. So when we think about IPM, we think about how can we modify each of these sides of the triangle so we don't have a triangle and we don't have the disease or the infestation, right? So one easy way to do it is to have good cultural practices, so modifying the environment so the tree is healthy. We don't have, if you're watering your trees, don't get them, especially with oaks, over irrigated. Just keep your trees as healthy as possible. So this part is going well. So it affects the environment by your cultural practices, and it affects, which hosts do you have, right? But then, as we'll see, there's other parts that we can modify. For example, we can modify how many GSOB, the abundance of GSOB in an area, and that will also sort of collapse this disease triangle and help us manage the pest. So we talked about amplifier trees, right? Kim mentioned those trees that the GSOB really, really likes and tends to attack a lot. So we know that GSOB populations concentrate in a few trees. Usually we think about those amplifier trees are trees that have more than 25 exit holes. And really, it tends to be about 10% of the infested trees in an area qualify as amplifier trees. But those amplifier trees have between 60 and 90% of the insect population. So if we remove these amplifier trees, we will be getting rid of this side of the triangle, and that is a great way to reduce the pressure of the beetles in an area and, you know, allow the other trees to have a respite and not being attacked by GSOB. So we very quickly can do a very good management action. So the question is kind of, okay, when do we cut? When do we treat? Well, for certain, if the tree is hazard or dead or dying, all those trees will probably not survive, and cutting is the good decision to make. Also think about if the area is high traffic or a fuel abatement area. So in those cases, we also want to be cautious and probably remove the tree, because we don't want to risk it that the dying tree would get a branch that falls onto someone or a structure, right? But it also really depends on the funding and resources and what treatment restrictions you have. So depending on, again, it's very site dependent, and sometimes you might decide to remove trees that are you know, less infested, but just because you can do it or because they are in an area that is high traffic. But generally, the threshold that is considered for removing a tree is more than 25 exit holes. And especially if the tree starts showing signs of decline, then there's no doubt that tree is a good candidate for removal, and that will be a good management decision. But if you want to double check what you did once you cut the tree, you could look into the cambium layer, and if you see the staining like it shows in here, that is sort of a good reassurance. The tree was infested with GSOB, and you did a good thing, because that tree was gonna die anyways, and you're removing a lot of GSOB from that area. Now, as we said, we have pupae and larvae still in the bark of this down wood once we remove it, right? Like, as we said, GSOB lives mostly in the bark, phloem, and cambium area. So even if you remove an amplifier tree, now you need to manage that fallen wood to prevent the spread. So our options are, the first option that I'm going to give you here is chipping and grinding. That's the easiest way, in a way, to manage the infested wood, as long as we get the particles to less than 3 inches. This is a good way to kill all of the beetles in there, right? Basically, the reason why this works is because it sort of like gets rid of the habitat of the beetles inside the wood. Even if the larvae doesn't get chopped, it just can't develop if there's not, you know, a trunk around it. So this is a really good way, and tends to be the way preferred, especially when you're dealing with several trees. Now, what you do with the chips is just as important as chipping it. So there's things that you can do, or like guidelines to follow for this. One of them is you can ideally spread those chips in the same location. You won't move them and keep them on site, but try to keep the chips to a depth of a maximum 3 inches or less if you can. And this is to reduce fire risk. This might vary a little bit with local fire ordinances, so you can check on that, but generally 3 inches or less is a good measure. And then, as I said, don't move them, because if you move them, you could be transporting beetles to another location. So this will just basically destroy all the wood. But what if you want to keep it as firewood? You can do that, but just keep in mind that GSOB can survive in this downwood for up to 2 years. So in order to be used as firewood, your options are to either let it season on site for 2 years, do contained seasoning for 2 years, which is better, or debark it and get rid of, chip, burn, or borrow the bark, and you can use the hardwood as firewood. So in here, if you're gonna let it season on site, that's a little bit risky. A lot of the times, people will come and take this wood. And so if it's an isolated location and you still want to do it, you can. Make sure you have some kind of notice that show that it's infested wood and should not be moved. And just keep in mind that even though you're seasoning it in here, beetles are still going to come out of this wood and will be attacking the surrounding oaks. So this is not ideal. But at least if you leave it for 2 years, after 2 years, this wood can be moved and sell as firewood. A better option for seasoning will be doing it in a contained manner, right? The way that I like the best is using metal screen. You can make like bags with it, or you can use a fully screened woodshed that has this very fine mesh. But you have to make sure that it's completely sealed. These beetles are like Houdini. They will find the little openings and try to escape. So basically what will happen in here is all the beetles will come out, won't be able to leave this mesh bag, and eventually they will die. But again, you have to leave them for 2 years, and you have to have the location where you can have this wood encased in this metal screens for 2 years. Another option is to use UV resistant tarp that is at least 6 millimeters thick. So it has to be very, very thick tarp because we need to make sure that the beetles can't go through it and that it won't break with the weather. You can also use this polyvinyl mesh bags, but there's something very, very important about this. This will only work if you leave an air gap between the wood and the tarp. If you don't, if it's very tightly sealed, the beetles will be able to chew through the tarp and come out. But if you leave that air gap, basically what happens is it forces the beetle to congregate inside, and then they will die without being able to leave. So I'll say this one's, I do not recommend it very much because there's more risks of beetles coming out of it. Either if the air gap doesn't get well done, the tarp can sometimes break. So if you want to contain it, I recommend using metal screen bags. But again, in either case, you have to leave them for 2 years, and then after that, it's safe to move that wood. A more instant option is to debark the wood, but this one also is very labor intensive. So as we said, GSOB lives in the bark. So if you debark it, either you can use a chainsaw, a wood splitter. It is not easy. It takes a lot of time to do, but you will end up with a hardwood, and the hardwood is safe to sell or move because it doesn't contain GSOB. Now we're gonna move into our chemical treatments options. So we have our sanitation methods and chipping and grinding covered. Now, what happens with those trees that are healthy trees and we want to preventatively treat them? So first of all, consider that we're only gonna consider them candidates for treatments if they're healthy. and if there's GSOB in the area. A lot of the times we tend to make some sort of buffer zone around an infested tree, either 300 feet or between 100 and 300 feet. And we preventatively treat the trees within that buffer area, just because we're thinking, well, the beetles tend to come out and sort of hop to the nearby trees. So those trees that are around an infested trees are probably more prone to getting infested themselves. This is mostly preventative. If a tree is already showing signs of decline, treatments usually don't work in those cases. And if you use this management option strategically, it just can help you meet certain forestry goals. For example, preserving heritage oaks, or protecting trees in high use public areas, or something of that sort. But again, you have to keep in mind that treating always comes with environmental costs. And so it's always something that we keep as a last resource for this high value oaks. So options for treatments. We have contact sprays. So that's basically applying a protective insecticide barrier to the bark, like carbaryl or bifenthrin. In this case, we're going to be spraying trunks and branches with there are more than 8 inches in diameter. We're not going to be spraying the canopy, just the trunks and branches. And ideally, we'll apply this before the flight season or at the beginning of it. So maybe April, May will be a good time to do this kind of treatments. This is faster than injecting a tree, is less expensive, but it comes with risks to the applicators and to nearby non-target insects. And also we cannot do this kind of application near bodies of water because these pesticides are very detrimental to aquatic life. For those cases, we have other options like systemic injections, right? The ones that have been tested were emamectin benzoate and imidacloprid. They could offer some protection, but it just depends on the uptake of the tree. So ideally you will apply it during the rainy season or right at the end of the rainy season, so you have more water available and the tree can uptake it and move the chemicals through its trunks up through the trunk. This can last up to 2 years, but they're more expensive and more labor intensive. And we have the problem that the place where you're drilling the hole to do the injections can be a place where pathogens can be introduced, and then you're introducing a new problem to your tree. One thing we do to try to help prevent that is after we do the injections, I'd like to spray those wounds, those injection wounds, with Bacillus subtilis, which is a biological fungicide. We just have it prepared in a spray bottle, basically, and spray the injection sites just to give it an extra level of protection to prevent that infestation. But yet, even if we do that, sometimes we still get this pathogens infesting the injection wounds. And the other thing is, it is not without consequences to non-target organisms, because all of these systemics go to the leaves, and then there's insects eating those leaves, non-target insects that will also get affected by the injections of the trees. People always ask me about basal sprays with dinotefuran. This was tested when this was tested by Coleman in 2017. He did detected residues in the leaves of the dinutefuran that was used as a basal spray. But when he fed those leaves to GSOB, none of them died. So we don't have good evidence that this will work. I have some people swear by it, but we don't have any scientific evidence or strong evidence that this will work. We need more research on this just to be able to recommend it. And just consider that, starting in January of this year, California law restricted most outdoor non-agricultural use of dinutefuran in the other neonics. And so it just restricted it to licensed applicators only, but it's probably going to get more restrictions in the future. For this, Kim already covered growing degree day model for GSOB. So I'm gonna plus into this just to remind you that based on what we know from other species on the same genus, we consider that probably the emergent season will start when we have about 400 degree days accumulated, and it will peak around 1,500 to 2,000 growing degree days. So considering that, we have a new sort of diagram of when this will be happening. So this is another version of that life cycle diagram that Kim showed you. But this is something that it's basically a summary of the integrated pest management options that we have. So based on what we know about growing degree days in average climate in California, we think that probably emergent season will start in around March and will go up to September, with June, July being the time when we have the accumulated growing degree days to have the peak on the emergence, right? And so we'll have the beetles will be inside the tree during fall and winter, and they're gonna start coming outside the tree during the spring and summer, right? So we're gonna be monitoring tree health during fall and winter, and also looking for these D-shaped exit holes. If we are trapping, we want to do it during the flight season. But again, remember the trapping is not a great option at this point. Systemic insecticides, we want to apply them at the beginning, in spring, basically, right as the rainy season ends and right before the emergent season starts. Contact insecticides, kind of the same. We can do it a little bit later, but basically we want to make sure that it's applied before the peak flight season, so we can, kill those beetles that are dispersing. We can do grinding, chipping, and enclosures for wood all year round. And for transporting wood, ideally, if you have to transport it to another location in order to be, let's say, chipped or to be enclosed, ideally you won't be transporting wood, but if you have to, I would do it in, again, winter, because this is the safe time when we know that the beetles are not emerging. Just to touch on our options for biological management, we know there's many natural enemies. There's parasitic wasps. There's other beetles that eat GSOB. There's mites. There's woodpeckers. But yet none of these are have been found to be a practical management tool yet. The parasitism rates for the wasps that we found right now is pretty low, and we haven't found that natural enemy that will allow us to provide good biocontrol. So in summary, we need more research and we need to find more candidates in order to find something that could work as a biological management tool. And the last thing is replanting. So if you're removing all these amplifier trees, you need to start replanting early and try to, bring back that canopy. Ideally, try to get acorns from the same location. If you're going to be planting in fall and winter is better. Do not add soil amendments or anything like that. Just use native soil and don't plant it too low. Try to plant it high so you don't get the tree to be established too low and the roots get more too much moisture. I mean the trunk base doesn't get too much moisture. Now, if you're gonna you can in California plant the seedlings and not irrigate them, but if you provide supplemental irrigation for the first few years, that increases sapling survival. Just make sure that it's deep watering and not light and frequent irrigation. And then it's good to have these tubes or cages to protect them from grazing when they're very little. And if you can, keep a weed-free zone around the trunk. That also increases your chances of survival for the saplings that you're planting. Keep in mind that the public, it needs to be informed about your management actions. It's important for them to know when you're doing stuff and why. Like, people get very upset when you're removing trees. And so getting them to understand what's going on, why those trees are being removed, and how that protects the rest of the forest is very, very important. You can also get your community involved in monitoring and replanting efforts. And we're gonna see more about that in the next few talks. And we'll repeat, GSOB.org is a great resource. We have a reporting tool that Kim already talked about, and you can get GSOB's updates over here. So I'm not going to go through this too much. And so to conclude, we want regular monitoring so we can have timely and effective management decisions. We want to prioritize prevention, so avoid spreading this pest by not moving firewood. The chemical treatments are preventative and can help with healthy and high value trees, but not once you have visible decline. Removing amplifier trees is key to reduce beetle pressure and slow the spread in that location. You have to handle infested wood responsibly with all the tools. You can pick any of the tools I gave you and make sure you inform and educate your community so you have a successful management and you have people that have your back. With that, thanks to all these people, my team, urban forestry team, and all the people that contributed for this talk, and I'll be able to take some questions if we have time.
Thank you, Bea. Jan, do we have time?
No, sorry, we don't.
All right. Well, I would ask any of the presenters who aren't speaking if you can please check open questions in the Q&A and maybe answer them online, and take it away, Jan.
Yes, I'm sorry, but thank you, Bea, very much. We appreciate all that information that you shared. And yes, if you could please look at the Q&A and tackle that. In the end, if we have some time, we'll circle back around.
Absolutely.
And again, anything that we can't address during the webinar, we will make sure that we get addressed in follow-up communications with everybody who has registered. So next I'm going to introduce Stan Hill. He is with the Resource Conservation District of Greater San Diego County. He's going to talk to us a little bit about a 10-year project that he's been conducting. Stan, did you want to share your screen, or do you want me to share the presentation for you?
I can do it.
Okay.
I should do it. Yeah.
That'd be great. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and let you go forward. Thank you.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm glad to see that we have a lot of participants on this symposium. As you all know, GSOB is quite the issue here in Southern California, and unfortunately points beyond. So yeah, I work here at the Resource Conservation District of Greater San Diego County. I am coming up on 4 years. At the end of this year will be 4 years that I've been here. Prior to that, I worked for the Forest Service here on the Southern California Cleveland National Forest for 29 years. Got acquainted with GSOB while I was at the Forest Service, and to be perfectly honest with you, didn't really look into it, didn't pay much attention to it. But as you'll see in my little PowerPoint that I have here, the Oak Grove fire station, Oak Grove Valley, is a place that I spent a lot of time. And I noticed what was happening to the oak trees, but again, didn't look into it enough to realize what it was. And once I got here to the RCD, have since become all too familiar with GSOB. So I will, let's see. Try to, if I share my screen, let me make sure this works here. I don't know, should I bring the PowerPoint up first or share screen first? So, whoops. I have it down here. Why isn't it? Oh, hold on a second.
Sure.
Sure. I think I need to bring my PowerPoint up first and then.
Yeah, we see your email now.
Okay, you don't want to see my email.
No, we don't.
Okay,
I
so
don't think you want us to see your email.
No, how do I stop sharing for a second?
At the bottom, it should be stop
Oh.
share.
It says share. That's it. Doesn't say stop share, it just says share.
Maybe, is there an arrow next to it where you can click?
No, what's going on here? Oh, there we go. There it is right there. But it's not big enough. So hold on a second. Why is this not working for me, people? Someone help me.
Dan, try clicking on your PowerPoint link that I see on your taskbar down below.
I can't quite get to it. I can't get that far down here. Hold
see
on.
Do you want to minimize your email? Can you see that?
Yeah, I can't see much here. It's
Jan, you should
Yes.
be able, if you hit share, you should be able to take that away from him.
All right, let me take.
Oh, there you go.
Did you get it?
What is? No, I'm still seeing this. Something going on here.
Okay, let me see if I can take this off.
Yeah. Oh, there's a stop share. Okay, now it popped up. All right.
There we go.
Okay, so now if I do this and then go to share, right?
Thank you, Randall.
Sure.
Gonna work, kids? Okay.
There you go.
But
you just need to put it in presentation mode.
And that's what I'm trying to do here.
Yep.
Okay, there we go. Let me see this.
Great. You're set.
Okay, I got to get rid of this thing, get stuff out of the way. Okay, so here we go. Sorry about that, folks. Anyway, so as you know, we're in the 2025 Goldspotted Oak Borer Symposium. And so this is a little overview of a project that started before I got to the RCD. I inherited it, and it's been going on. The RCD part started in 2021, but the project started with the Forest Service 10 years ago. So, a little bit about Oak Grove. This is the sign on the street as you enter the small hamlet of Oak Grove. And I don't know if the numbers are this sign. The first time I went to Oak Grove was over 30 years ago, and this sign was there then, and so it hasn't changed. But Oak Grove is a very small place on the north side of Palomar Mountain, about 23 miles east of Temecula on Highway 79. Typical stuff you see in a lot of places in San Diego, but this is a nice vintage shot of some pretty oak trees providing some beautiful shade to a grassy spot with nice rocks and whatnot. But this is what we like to see, is nice healthy oak trees. So about Oak Grove, again, it's a small San Diego backcountry community. The Oak Grove Valley is, Oak Grove itself is pretty contained little spot, but the Oak Grove Valley is actually quite large with the thousands and thousands of oak trees. Like it says here, iconic California woodland of mature oaks, and then Temecula Creek runs through the Oak Grove Valley. It's the headwaters of the Santa Margarita watershed. It's on the north slope of Palomar Mountain, and basically at the toe of the slope, in a kind of sawtooth pattern, is the border with the Cleveland National Forest. And like my friend from Oak Grove likes to say, this is where the wild things still run. So you've got mountain lions that come through, deer, bobcat, foxes, all kinds of stuff. It's a really nice place. It's a small place, but if you spend any time in Oak Grove, you'll realize it's a beautiful place. And so what we're trying to do here, why are we trying to save these threatened oak trees? One of the things that we could probably ascribe to just about anything we do these days is to reduce wildfire risk. We want to try to minimize carbon emissions, and then we want to try to preserve the backbone of of our California ecosystem. So the Oak Grove project itself, and this is kind of blending, what the Forest Service started doing and what some of the objectives have been with the RCD's involvement. So this is a proof of concept demonstration. The Oak Grove is a laboratory for GSOB research. And like I said, we've been doing this at Oak Grove for a little bit over 10 years. So the system that we use in Oak Grove is carbaryl basal application with the arborist and Dr. Tom Scott. I have been involved in this. So it delivers highly cost-effective forest health benefits, protects the keystone species of California's ecology. The project develops and shares data, tools, and techniques with others. So GSOB detection, diagnosis, and barrier spraying application. So grassroots community-based approach, you'll see that a little bit farther along that the community kind of started this thing. The project data being used to develop UC integrated pest management guidelines benefits other landowners and managers, so not just the Forest Service, or if we're working to save and protect oak trees, that's helping anything within and beyond that, we'll say, sphere of influence. And then the project also helps deliver on California Climate Initiative objectives, reducing greenhouse gases. So, if those trees burn, we're doing that kind of thing. Improving human health, and then protecting our environment and nature with the beauty of our great oaks. So the bottom line here, literally and figuratively, is that this project saves the most trees at the least cost. So this little diagram shows that in the upper right there, that's Highway 79 running right through. On the right side of that photo, that's the Oak Grove campground. And on the left side, I know it's kind of very tiny and hard to see, but that's the Oak Grove fire station. And the boundaries of that photo, that's basically the Forest Service property. Campground and the Oak Grove fire station compound. Then you can see, so most likely GSOB got to Oak Grove in Firewood is probably the most likely vector, which, as you know, is one of the most likely vectors for GSOB getting to a lot of places in Southern California. So Oak Grove is not unique. That's that's the world we live in. So here's a bit of a timeline, and I want to thank one of our Oak Grove champions for providing me with a lot of this information. So I know you can read it, but I'll run through it. So 2004, GSOB first detected in San Diego County, and that's detected, identified. That time 2004 could be plus or minus a year or two, depending on where and when and who and all that. But at this point in time, that doesn't matter. What matters is, where you live and what you're dealing with. So in 2009, the Oak Grove residents, so as you can see, this started with the community. The Oak Grove residents began proactive GSOB monitoring. That continued for a while. So once we flash forward a few years. So in 2015, GSOB was detected in Oak Grove by arborist Brett Hutchinson and UC biologist Dr. Tom Scott, and barrier spraying begins. So that was the start of it. And like I said, I forgot to mention that I worked at Oak Grove from 2001 to 2018. Actually lived there from 2001 to 2004, almost 2005. The first 3 years I worked there, I lived there. And as I mentioned earlier, I didn't really know this GSOB thing was happening, but I did know and notice that something was happening to the oaks in Oak Grove. The health was declining. It was obvious if you were there every day, which I was for a very long time. You just one day you walk by and you just notice that, man, that oak was very green and fluffy last year, and this year it's kind of spindly and it doesn't look the same. Something's happening to it. And again, I didn't know what it was. So in 2016, the first Oak Grove community-wide tree survey detects GSOB on private and Forest Service lands. This was, again, the community doing this. The Forest Service was notified of the infestation. People started rallying, so the community put together the first GSOB meeting, and the community started spraying certain areas, certain trees in 2016. And then traps were set up here and there, so local GSOB emergence records from trap data. So kind of 2015 first detected, 2016 the community let's get something going here. This is here. This is affecting the oak trees. We need to do something about it. So 2017 GSOB detection training presented to the community, and then the Forest Service started barrier spraying of high value trees. If I remember, I think they started over in the campground, because I remember we were putting, they had the fire people there. We were putting visqueen on picnic tables and things that people could touch and whatever to protect from any overspray or anything like that. Again, I didn't pay much attention to the spraying or what was happening. They said, hey, we're going to be spraying some chemicals. Can you put this visqueen on the picnic tables and then come back a week later and take it off? Sure, I can do that. So then, again, little gap here. So now in 2021, this was the first year of the California state funding provided through, the Resource Conservation District of Greater San Diego County. And this was done through a grant program called the Regional Forest and Fire Capacity Program that comes through the Department of Conservation. We still do, we'll shorten it to RFFC, like I have in brackets there. The RCD of San Diego here. We still work very closely with the RFFC program. We are one of 6 RFFC grantees in the Southern California region. So we're still very involved in that program, and we do a variety of things with that funding. So 2022, through that funding, we produced a how-to video that there's basically two parts to that video, and I can share the link to that video after I'm done here. But basically, the first half of the video, it's about 30 minutes. The first half is a lot of the similar to a lot of the information that we're getting today. It's basically what is GSOB, where does it come from, what's its life cycle, what it does to the trees, how to identify it, all that. The second portion of the video highlights what we've been doing at Oak Grove as far as the system that we've chosen to help with some funding here, which is the carbaryl basil application. So that's basically the two halves of the video. We also had a town hall to help educate and share project insights. In 2024, we put together the Oak Grove GSOB Bug Hunt Professional and Public Education event. I think there's probably many of you that are on today that attended that. And here we are in 2025, and like it says, you know, the fight continues. We're all involved in this to some degree or another, and we're all, you know, just trying to deal with it. So like I mentioned, after GSOB was detected there in Oak Grove, and then the community reached out to the forest and notified them, and then the district ranger at the time put together this decision memo, which helped. This is basically, Forest Service speaks, a document that needs to happen, a process that needs to happen to secure funding and start doing things. So that happened fairly quickly back then. Through the Department of Conservation's RFFC program, the RCD was able to start supporting this demonstration project, which again was, you know, talking about or was focused on monitoring, detection, and then mitigation through carbaryl basil application. A photo that hopefully everybody is super familiar with, they're up there on the right, which is some holes, and some of those holes are GSOB holes, and one of them is not. Maybe two of them are not. So that's something that we're going to try to hone in on here in the next couple of months, is the proper detection of GSOB. So here, just a couple random photos, but you know, GSOB detection, it takes as you all know, it takes a trained eye to detect and identify GSOB. And as we know, most of the time it's, you know, we start with identifying a thinning canopy, and then that might draw us into that tree or that group of trees. And then we start looking for, you know, you guys should all know this, right? D-shaped holes, woodpecker foraging evidence, maybe lesions, kind of things like that. But and once you see the D-shaped hole, you don't forget it. But there are other signs that take a little bit more training and a better trained eye to find. The picture on the right doesn't really do a whole lot, but it's hard to see. But our arborist has developed a whole system, applicator system, spray rigs mounted on trucks with really long hoses, like really long hoses, 1,500 feet or longer. So they can access, it makes it very easy for them to access a lot of trees, you know, park the truck, pull the hose. They can really get to a lot of trees in a pretty quick, you know, a pretty short amount of time. So it really, really reduces the time and cost of the basil application. So it's a really good system. We've helped through the demonstration project over the last couple of years. We've helped increase the capacity of this effort. And on a chart later here, we'll kind of show the numbers. So here's a little thing for the instructional video. Again, I'll share the link. I can put it in the chat or whatever Jan wants me to do with it here in a minute. So here's the, by the numbers, right? So Oak Grove spray history. And as you can see, the land in those first 5 years, 2016 to 2020, that was all, those dollars spent were all the community members themselves, the property owners themselves, the people that have trees are still concerned about their trees and really willing, literally to spend a lot of money out of their own pocket to protect this asset. And then the second half there, the bold, the 2021 to 2025 this is where after RCD came along to help, and our arborist has, every one of these trees where it says trees sprayed, every one of those trees is geolocated. Many of them, there's photos. So we have a record of what trees got sprayed, which years they got sprayed. Sometimes a few trees got skipped for a year, then go back to them and hit them again. The arborist has a system for how, strategic system for what to do with these trees. But as you can see, it's a lot of trees. And this bottom line, thousands of trees sprayed, over 1,200 acres of trees protected. And one thing that should be on there is not only protected, but through this 10-year cycle here, this 10-year process, what we've seen is there's a lot of those trees that are still alive and healthy and green and fluffy. And, nobody, I don't know about nobody, but we don't necessarily know that if we didn't do this, they wouldn't be green and healthy, but it's likely that they would not. If we didn't do anything, there would be a lot more dead trees standing in the Oak Grove Valley or falling over in the Oak Grove Valley. So I just want to, as I finish up here, there'll be more information on this, but the RCD of Greater San Diego County here, we're sponsoring a two-part thing coming up next year. And the first part is going to be lessons learned from 10 years on the front line. So this will be an online event similar to today, not quite as long, but I'll get the information to Jan as it comes along. We're putting this together right now. And this is basically, if you want the super nitty-gritty of what we've been doing at Oak Grove with those professionals, with our arborist and with Dr. Tom Scott, they will be presenting their findings on this next Zoom event here. But I just wanted to put that on folks' radar just to let you know what else is coming up. So that's kind of the overview of what we've done what we've been doing at Oak Grove over the last 10 years. We continue doing it. It's a large data set, probably one of the largest data sets that's out there for this method anyway. And yeah, so if you have questions, I don't know if we have time for questions, Jan, or if we have to wait till the end, but that's what I have for you. So I thank you very much for your time, and we'll continue fighting.
Thank you, Stan. Really appreciate you sharing about the work that you've been doing over all these years. Yes, please go ahead and send me all that information. We'll make sure we share that with everyone who's subscribed to our Goldspotted Oak Borer subscribers email list. I'll share more about that at the end.
Okay.
Anyhow, so yeah, I think we should wait till the end for some questions. But please go ahead and look at the Q&A. If there's anything there, you can feel free to just answer it directly in the Q&A.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and move on to the GSOB management in the Inland Empire. We have Jocelyn, Perez, and Kayla Thompson with the Inland Empire RCD. They're going to be sharing more about that landscape-wide community, larger scale program that they've been doing. Jocelyn, did you want me to share your presentation or do you have it?
I can share it. That way I
Okay,
can
that would be
the
great.
slides.
All right, super. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Perfect. Yeah, we can see it. Okay, cool. So my name is Kayla Thompson. I'm the Forestry Program Specialist at the Inland Empire Resource Conservation District. It's so good to see so many people registered to learn more about Gold-Spotted Oak Borer. It warms my heart to know that so many people are interested in this invasive pest and managing it before it spreads everywhere. So we're just going to share briefly about our Gold-Spotted Oak Borer Management Program servicing San Bernardino County and the Inland Empire. And if you go to the next slide, we are a resource conservation district, just as Stan Hill is from the Resource Conservation District of the Greater San Diego County. So RCDs, we're local government agencies with the mission to preserve and protect natural resources. We work with both private landowners and other public agencies and also federal agencies. So dealing with like Forest Service, CALFIRE, but then also helping landowners get in touch with financial resources or other programs that can help them manage their landscape. All of RCD's programs are really flexible to meet the specific community concerns of their service area. So every RCD is going to be a little bit different than another one, just dependent on the community needs. All of our conservation work is completely voluntary. We do not report to any other agency. We're non-regulatory. People always get really nervous when we come surveying their trees that we're going to like find them or something. That's never the case. This is purely educational, providing that technical assistance rather than finding anybody. And then our service area at the Inland Empire RCD covers 1,300 square miles in San Bernardino and a little bit of Riverside County. And then if this still isn't clear to you about what an RCD does, I like to make the comparison about everybody's heard of a water district before, where water districts are providing water services to a specific area. So RCDs are essentially doing the same thing, but instead of providing water services, we're providing conservation services. So I feel like usually when I make that comparison, people are like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So we're a special district. And the next slide. So as far as IERCD's Gold-Spotted Oak Borer Management, we became a regional block grantee of the Regional Forest and Fire Capacity Program that Stan just mentioned. So that's RFFC for short. This is a state program administered through the Department of Conservation, and it's funding invested into our region to help build capacity and plan projects to fill gaps in addressing forest and fire issues. So this is all about capacity building, creating demonstration projects, workforce development, things like that. So we were able to use our first grant funding through this RFFC grant to develop our like pilot Gold-Spotted Oak Borer program in 2019, which was kind of perfect timing since the Gold-Spotted Oak Borer was found in San Bernardino County in about 2018. So 2019, we rolled out our RFFC program to do some monitoring and also treatment in Oak Glen, which is a community located on like the foothills of the San Bernardino Mountains. And it has a really high established infestation of Gold-Spotted Oak Borer and a lot of California black oak trees there. So when we first rolled out this program, we were just we were funding treatments, removals, monitoring, just specific to this community. And then at that point, we realized, oh, we actually don't really know the extent of the spread of Gold-Spotted Oak Borer in San Bernardino County since it is such a new pest to the region. So maybe we need to take a step back and just focus on monitoring to spread our money out longer to be able to figure out the extent of the distribution of Gold-Spotted Oak Borer within our region and in the San Bernardino Mountains. So we have a map here of some of the treatment areas that we were focusing on back in 2019. And these were really like community-led, community leaders coming together in cul-de-sacs and neighborhoods that all had Gold-Spotted Oak Borer on their property that wanted to come together collectively to treat their trees and continue managing them over time. So that's why you kind of see these like concentrated areas of where we were doing the treatment areas. And since 2019, we've been able to secure different funding sources to continue our Gold-Spotted Oak Borer management through monitoring. So we've been able to receive grants from the United States Forest Service to continue monitoring across the federal lands and forests. We also have funding from CALFIRE, from the UCANR. We've also received funding from the National Forest Foundation to continue management and monitoring on federal lands and also on private lands. So since our conception of our program, we've been able to get other funding sources to continue on throughout time. And currently we're using funding through the RFFC grant again to continue these monitoring programs.
Alrighty, so I was thinking we can talk a little about GSOB's distribution within our district. So like Kayla mentioned, it was first identified in 2018. That's always kind of tricky to know officially when it was first infested in that area. But first it was found in Oakland and Forest Falls, and then later in multiple communities within Big Bear. So that would be Sugarloaf and Moonridge, as well as Wrightwood. It has since spread to Crestline and Silverwood, as well as neighboring communities to Oakland like Yucaipa and Wildwood. It should be noted too that California state parks also actively manage their land within Wildwood Canyon and Silverwood as well. And then one tricky thing about our program is that we do have to work within our district boundary. So we'll be focusing on our district boundary. So that's that blue line. And then like Kayla mentioned too, is that since we received that RFFC funding, we were able to expand our boundaries so that we're able to work all throughout the San Bernardino Mountains. So we have an agreement with the Mojave RCD, which is to the north of us. So that's that blue boundary at the very top. And then one last thing to note is that we've noticed that in our region, that gold-spotted oak borer tends to attack black oak a lot more heavily than canyon and coast live oak. We'll rarely actually see amplifier trees that are not black oak. It's usually always black oak. So you'll notice that a lot of the hotspots are correlated to that areas where black oak is present. All right, so talking about our gold-spotted oak borer surveys with residents. So these surveys are open to any resident that has these susceptible oak trees to gold-spotted oak borer. They don't have to be within the hotspots. They could be anywhere throughout our service area. And the main thing is really being able to understand where the gold-spotted oak borer is and where it's not, and be able to give them resources for treatments and to be able to give them some education about gold-spotted oak borer too. So what we do is that we'll go out to inspect their properties, and depending on the size of properties, then maybe we'll focus on areas that trees can become a potential hazard. So we'll go out and survey around their main property, going around their home or roads. And we try to be very systematic about about surveying their trees by using tags. So long as we have the permission from the landowner, we'll go ahead and tag each tree. It's a really great way of monitoring these trees over time. Oftentimes we'll have landowners that are interested in us coming out at a yearly basis to see how the tree's health is doing year after year, seeing if the infestations are getting worse, and seeing if the treatments are actually working. Another key component is also highlighting those exit holes, as we know that's key to understanding that the tree is dying from gold-spotted oak borer, and it's not another kind of reason why that tree is dying. So it kind of becomes like an impromptu, like educational opportunity for the landowner. So we have them come out, we show them what we're looking for, those specific exit holes, and we also provide them with those like identification cards, as well as like pamphlets, so that they're able to keep an eye out on their trees. You know, we're able to come out maybe like once a year to their properties, but they're the ones that are able to monitor their trees, you know, month after month. And then we'll also provide them with a map and some corresponding data to every landowner. Like I said, we'll give them tag numbers, number of exit holes if they have any. Some really important information that we provide too is the crown rating, so the health of the tree, the diameter of the tree, the height, etc. All of this is really helpful in providing management recommendations. So in some instances, it's fairly easy to know which trees we recommend for them to be removed. A lot of them are somewhere in the middle, right? We don't know if they're automatically recommended for removal, or do we want to treat them, or are they just a tree that we might want to monitor instead? So it's really important to have those different signs. So looking at the amount of staining, there might be a tree that is has a moderate amount of infestation, but is really small. We might still want to recommend that tree to be removed. It's really a case-by-case basis. And then there is also some funding opportunities, which we'll talk about in the next slide. Okay, so as we know, removals is extremely expensive, and it could be very burdensome for these landowners. We have a variety of different landowners that we work with. Some of them have very small properties, and their trees can become a hazard very quickly. Their limbs will start to fail. It can be a hazard to their homes themselves, their cars, their health in general. And then we also have landowners that have multiple acres, and this can also be burdensome too, because it becomes very hard for them to manage. It could be just very inaccessible. So one of the other kind of aspects of the management is we really want to be able to manage GSOB at a landscape level, but that can be really difficult when there's so many different parcels that are owned by different people. So there's difficulty in being able to reach some people. Some people just only live there for the spring or just certain times. So it's difficult to you have one person that's just really actively managing, and the other one is you can't even get in contact with them. But there are a couple of funding ways to get some of these trees removed. So the first way that we try to get some of these trees removed is through like local utilities. So if there are trees on a power line, that could be such a big fire hazard. So we'll reach out to usually Southern California Edison, and they tend to be very proactive about removing trees and very quickly. One of the other ways is through the Mountain Rim Fire Safe Council. So they have a hazard tree program, and they're able to contribute between 10 to 100% of the cost of removing, and it depends on the income. And also, if a landowner is experiencing financial hardship, they can also cover a little bit more of that cost of removing that tree. The one thing is that the tree does have to have a target. So it could be, the target can be in any direction, so long as it has a target. So it can be their home, their garage, or any kind of like exterior structure. Another way that we have been working with landowners to get some of their trees removed is through a local CALFIRE insect crew. So this can be a bit tricky as well. So they have some limited availability, but they are actually willing to work on these larger properties just for liability reasons. They really don't want to work on those smaller properties where there could be damage to homes and structures. So that's one way that we've been able to get some trees removed within the IERCD boundaries. And then as for treatments, we always provide landowners with a list of local contractors that have experience working with Goldspotted Oak Borer. In addition to that, we also provide them with local insecticide applicators that are licensed as well. And then here we have an example of a map that we share with landowners. So this is a landowner that we first got in contact with after we found an amplifier to the south of their property that was on Forest Service land. Since then, we've been able to slowly chip away at their property, but noticing that we're focusing near their structures first and then working our way out. And yeah, so this kind of gives you an example of the tag number, so showing you easily, so they're easily able to identify which trees are the ones that we are recommending for removal versus ones that might be good candidates for treatments instead. And then just to talk a little bit about our work with the San Bernardino National Forest. So starting around 2022, we had this sort of like pilot program where we set up these like monitoring plots. They're essentially like 1/10 of an acre plots where we would come back year after year, inspecting the trees to seeing if there's been a growth in the number of exit holes at each oak tree. Since then, we've been able to expand that due to more funding and also through guidance of Forest Service. And now we are surveying all throughout the National Forest and high use areas. So that could include, campgrounds. And it's really given us a better understanding of where gold-spotted oak borer is and where it's not. And to mention, one of the funding sources was through the National Forest Foundation. And around this time last year, we were able to really amp up our surveying efforts, and we were able to bring out more IERCD staff to survey these areas. And we provided this data to the Forest Service, and through the NFF grant, they were able to remove 27 amplifier trees and in the communities of Sugarloaf and Forest Falls. And then just to give you some summary stats, so far from the very beginning of our surveying, we've surveyed over 8,000 oaks, and we've identified 1,432 infested trees. We've worked on 161 private properties, and then we've removed 97 amplifier trees. This stat is a little bit harder to get a great number with, because once we recommend a tree to be removed through like the Fire Safe Council, for example, we sometimes don't get that that statistic back to know if it was removed or how many were removed. So this one is most likely a little higher, but just to be a little conservative. And then the most exciting part that to share with you all is that we actually have some funding coming next year. So we'll be actually able to fund future treatments and removals through this CALFIRE grant. So especially working with landowners that don't really fall under the criteria of their trees being hazard trees, or being able to work with those CALFIRE insect crews. It'll be great to be able to have a mix, and be able to help out these landowners that don't fall under those two categories, but also being able to be involved in treatments and not just the removal portion of management.
And one of the largest aspects of our Gold-Spotted Oak Borer program is really just outreach and engaging the community as much as possible, trying to educate them, training people on how to survey. So a lot of our Gold-Spotted Oak Borer program outreach on even just getting people to sign up happens at me and Jocelyn going door to door in neighborhoods where we know Gold-Spotted Oak Borer is present, and seeing if people are interested in having us survey their trees that day. It's easier to be like, hey, we can just do it right now, rather than having to schedule something and then they forget about it or lose interest. And we've also had really great success with bringing in community members from like the CERT programs or the fire safe councils to come door to door with us. So there's like a familiar face knocking on their door rather than two people that they've never seen before. We've sent mailers, postcards, social media posts. We do a lot of outreach events where we table about gold-spotted oak borer, showing bark samples, dead insects, the identification cards, things like that. And we also have some really fun like gold-spotted oak borer matching games for the kids to play, to kind of connect, to see what is what looks like Goldspotted Oak Borer, what doesn't look like Goldspotted Oak Borer, and it's a lot of fun and the kids really enjoy it. We do a lot of presentations and training and workshop opportunities, working with local community groups, fire safe councils, the Urban Conservation Corps crews, California Conservation Corps crews. These are great because these are already people that are out and about in the forest, and they're already working in natural management or natural resource management. So it's great to train these people because in most cases we'll train them and then a couple of weeks later they'll be like, oh my gosh, we actually did find Goldspotted Oak Borer on one of our properties. I actually went out to a California Conservation Corps camp on the Los Padres, and I just went and showed up to do a training. They didn't know they had Goldspotted Oak Borer. It wasn't on the distribution map, and we found Goldspotted Oak Borer. So just examples like that of why it's so important to get out there and train members of our community that are already looking at trees. Community scientists are needed and are valuable. Some challenges that we face in trying to get community members to sign up. It can be hard because we do need them to sign a permission waiver to allow us on each and every property that we do survey, just a liability release form. Some people can be hesitant, think they're signing their life away or that we're going to fine them. And that's another thing and why we always stress that we're non-regulatory. So they're never going to get a fine after we leave, and it's completely up to them to go through with treatment or removals. We also have challenges in areas with a large amount of rentals or vacation homes, Airbnbs, because these landowners aren't actively managing their land. They're only there for like a couple weeks out of the year, and it can be hard to convince a landowner like that to spend a lot of money out of pocket to remove or treat their Goldspotted Oak Borer infested trees. And then just conveying the importance of Goldspotted Oak Borer surveys and active management through education. So like I said, using any opportunity we have to get out there and share with the public our knowledge and how we can support landowners within our service area on technical assistance. And then now, starting in 2026, we'll be able to help them actually fund treatments and removals, which we're really excited about. And one of the most important steps of our program, and anybody's trying to do Goldspotted Oak Borer surveying, is the regional collaboration aspect of it. This is not a siloed industry. We really all need to work together, share our resources, share our maps, our surveys, and share that wealth, because there can't only be one agency surveying for this. There's just too many trees, there's too many forests. So it's really a teamwork effort to get these surveys on the ground and get treatments on the ground. One of the newer Goldspotted Oak Borer management agencies in our region is the San Bernardino Mountains Land Trust, who owns a lot of land within the San Bernardino Mountains, and they actually applied for a sub-grant through our RFFC program. So we were able to sub-grant their community scientist program and help build their organizational capacity to continue doing Goldspotted Oak Borer surveys and management on their land, which is really exciting. So they're a new partner in the pot. And we also have really great partners at CALFIRE, like Kim Corella, David Haas. We work with them all the time. They're absolutely fantastic. Our partners at the Mountain Rim Fire Safe Council have been amazing in helping get financial resources on the ground with private landowners. National Forest Foundation and the United States Forest Service has helped us receive funding to assist in monitoring and our removal projects. And then we provide the CALFIRE crews with our already surveyed areas to complete the removals. So this is a really great longstanding partnership where we're able to go survey a whole area, provide that information to these insect crews that Jocelyn mentioned, and then as they are able to within their schedule to go out and do the removals for us, which is really awesome. And these removals double as a training opportunity for the insect crews while they're trying to still get their felling license. And that's one of the main reasons why they don't want to do it on a small property, is because these guys are still being trained. So they want to make sure there's no liability concerns there. So that's been a really great partnership. And then connecting landowners with additional technical and financial assistance programs through like federal agencies, Natural Resource Conservation Service, or other IERCD programs to help them like remove invasives on their property, or if they have agriculture land, we can help support them test their soil or install tensometers and things like that. So there's a lot of things that we're able to connect landowners with, and really this is just the first step in us continuing to grow that relationship with the landowner and help them in many different ways. And I think that's it. If we have any time for questions, but thank you guys so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kayla and Jocelyn. We really appreciate all the work that you've done. We certainly appreciate you being here to share with us today about your program and what's going on. I really appreciate the theme that I'm hearing about all the partnerships. It takes a lot of people to do this work. So I think we're going to go ahead and take a really short break. If you have a chance to go over into the Q&A section and look for questions, I think that's probably the best bet. I'm sorry, I guess I talked too much in the beginning because we're running behind. I think it is my fault, but I would like to give everyone a chance to take a quick break, 5 minutes. Let's come back in about 5 minutes. We'll be here at, I'm going to say 10:40, so a little more than 5 minutes. Okay, so just a quick break. Okay, I show that it's 10:40. I hope folks have been able to take a quick break, grab a refreshed drink, or take a quick stretch break. We're going to go ahead and get restarted again. Kim, are you ready to move on? We want to talk a little bit about what's happening new in our monitoring and survey and detection activity.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay, let me
we'll let you
share.
go ahead and get started. Thank you.
Okay. Sure. Okay, welcome back, everyone. So I'm going to talk about the GSOB Blitz, just kind of the data collection and what we did to prepare for that. And Jan will go into the details of the Blitz and also talk about the distribution map that we have currently and what is being planned in the future. Okay, hold on. Let's see here. Okay, so we want to do these blitzes because GSOB, obviously, as we've learned, spreads very easily through infested firewood, starting those new locations and centers. But when it is established there, from firewood, infested firewood, it does spread naturally. So it spreads tree to tree and that sort of thing. So figuring out where GSOB is really important because Kayla mentioned there's a lot of oak trees to be surveyed. And we can't just have one agency or even a few agencies out there looking at them because we'll never cover it. So it's always good to have more people out there looking for this. So we all know where GSOB is, but we don't know where GSOB is not. So that's really important. And that was one of the factors of trying to figure out for these GSOB blitzes and how to survey data. GSOB, obviously, as we've seen this before, can spread throughout the West Coast. So it's really important to know to get out there and survey areas where these hosts are, where the potential for this GSOB to be spread could be. So in order to prepare for the Blitz, we did a Blitz training webinar, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And we set up a Survey 123 database for folks that attend the Blitz to collect the data. So for that training webinar, it's really kind of what we're going over right now is Jan and Bea and I talked about GSOB infestations, the biology, pretty much detection and monitoring the signs and symptoms, why we collect data and its importance, and then how to use the Survey 123 to collect that data. And all this information from that website, the website is located on gsob.org. And then I set up the Survey 123 data collection tool for folks to use when they are out there doing the Blitz. They download the Survey 123 app before the Blitz, and then once they do that, they can access the GSOB Blitz Survey 123, and then they can collect data without internet access, which is really important because a lot of times you're underneath dense tree canopy or you're in these canyons and you don't have internet access. So being able to record data without internet access was essential. And for this data collection with the survey 123, we have we want to survey and record both negative and positive GSOB trees, because really knowing what areas are surveyed are important. So if an area is surveyed and does not have GSOB, that's really important to know as it's like an area that does have GSOB, because if we don't record those negative areas, we don't know if that area has been surveyed before, so it's just a blank spot on the map. But having that negative record in that data collection is really important, so we know this area has been surveyed and currently does not have GSOB. So it's really important to have both negative and positive GSOB trees. So I just kind of want to go through a little bit of the survey 123 and what data is collected. It's all what you've seen the previous PowerPoints, but I just want to go over what is collected during the blitzes. So here's the survey 123, the GSOB Blitz that's downloaded on the survey 123. They open that, they hit the collect button, and then they open up the survey. So they hit the date, that populates, they enter the surveyor's initials, and then the Blitz name that they're intending, and then they move on down the survey. So I wanted to make the survey very short, but have the essential data that we need to make management decisions in the survey. So once you pick your Blitz, then you determine your tree species. And I have just the regular ones in there, the coast live oak, California black oak, Canyon live oak. I put interior in case that's been seen. But if you come across other tree species that use other oak species that you think may have a GSOB infection or a D-shaped exit hole, there's a text box below that to enter that data in there as well. And then you enter the number of trunks, and then that will open up the data collection. And the trunk location, the number of trunks, is really where a tree splits in relation to the diameter at breast height. If the diameter of breast height is below a tree split, it's still one trunk. If it's above diameter breast height and the tree splits below that, it's counted as two trees. So this tree would be a one trunk, and these would be two trunks because it splits below diameter breast height. And it's really important to include the number of trunks for management decisions. If you're removing trees or spraying trees, having the number of accurately measured trunks is important, and it will help the cost for those management techniques. For those of you who don't know, diameter breast height is just the standardized height at 4.5 feet above the ground where you measure the diameter of the tree. And again, that's really good for knowing if you have 12 40-inch diameter trees that are infested compared to 12 12-inch trees that are infested. The cost would be different. So having that information is really good for doing management. And then once you have those trunks recorded, you record the conditions that Bea talked about, and I talked about the crown condition and that sort of thing. So Bea showed this. You put the crown rating in this app, whether it's a healthy, with a 1, and all the way up to 5, which is dead. The staining, that's important as well. Knowing how infested that tree possibly could be. And then the GSOB exit holes that Bea went over as well. Knowing whether a tree has, I had the category down here and the number of holes, because the categories are they're kind of have a broad range from 1 to 10. So if a GSOB exit hole rating of 1, it could be either 1 to 10 exit holes, but the tree can only have 1 exit hole compared to 10. So knowing the number of exit holes is really helpful in knowing how infested that tree is. And then the locations that have the red asterisks are required data entry points, whereas trunk tag and staining are not required. And then we like to have people collect show pictures of the data they're collecting of each tree. So we have them take a picture of the whole entire tree to see the entire canopy, what they're looking at, take a picture of the leaf of the tree, so they make sure they have the right species identified, and then a picture of the D-shaped exit hole. And we prefer to have them take the exit hole with some sort of ruler or measurement tool. They had mentioned this. A finger is great, but my finger is different than Bea's finger, than other people's fingers. So having like a ruler is really a good way to tell how large that exit hole and if it's the right size. And we have additional photos as well if people want to take pictures of that. Oops. And then they can submit the data, and that gets uploaded to a database, and all that data we accumulate, and I approve each one of the survey Blitz entries. I go through the pictures, the data, and make sure it's accurate, and then approve those, each entry to be uploaded to GSOB Blitz dashboard. This is not public yet, but we're hoping to make it public soon. I'm working on getting the paperwork through, but this really shows all the accomplishments and the number of trees that have been surveyed during these blitzes. So far, we've done 11 blitzes since June this year, and we've surveyed 616 trees were surveyed. It shows how many trees are not infested by GSOB, which ones are infested by GSOB. And I'm going to try to show a live demonstration of this. Hopefully it works. But you can click on, you can scroll on here and see what Blitz. Click on it and it will zoom to that Blitz. And then when you click on, and these are all the trees that have been surveyed during this particular San Diego County Blitz. You can click on a tree and you can see the surveyor's initials, the tree species, how many trunks, and the information. This has 6 exit holes on that particular tree. Here's the, and it shows the pictures of the tree. So you see all the data that that collector collected. So you see the crown condition. It's not a very good picture of the leaf, but that makes the point that you want to have your pictures in focus, which can be difficult to do when you're taking a picture of something close up. So you want to make sure those pictures are in focus. And then they had a picture of the D-shaped exit hole is one right here compared to the card and by the ruler. So this is a perfect picture of a D-shaped exit hole showing GSOB. And they did a couple more, and then they had another insect they found on the tree. So all that information is recorded on that form and displayed on this dashboard. And this hopefully soon will be put on the gsob.org website. But I just wanted to give you guys a preview that that data that is being collected for the Blitz is being used and will be displayed. And you can check out all the locations in here that are negative and positive. Let me get back to my PowerPoint. Maybe. Okay. And in the future, we're working on hopefully creating a regional GSOB distribution map. Right now, we just have that Invasive map that's been shown throughout the symposium, which really has limited locations. It's just whenever I hear about something, or if Kayla or Bea or anybody else finds a new GSOB location, they send me those coordinates and I put that one coordinate on the map. So it's not a severity map. It just shows that GSOB is in that area. So we kind of want to have something very similar to the Shahobor distribution map as seen here on the right. It shows the density and severity of, this is Shahobor, but I want to do this with GSOB. This will allow the confirmed locations to be uploaded. It'll be in real time. And we really want to have different agencies collaborate with this, which will allow for early detection and rapid response. We find it in a new location, say in Ventura County, you can actually, have some early detection and rapid response to new locations. Even in established counties where it's been, just new locations in the county is really important to find new areas, and you can jump on it really quickly and have that surveyed and do management plans. And you can predict potential spread with these maps. And really, as I mentioned before, you can facilitate collaboration because we need a lot more people out there surveying. these locations, these sites. So it's really important to have all agencies involved that we can, surveying and uploading their data. So we have a map showing the severity and intensity and spread of GSOB. And as I mentioned, it can prioritize the management efforts and strategies. So this is in the works, this is in the future. We're just working on that GSOB Blitz distribution map right now. And then we're going to hopefully be getting this map up and running in probably a year or so, I would say. It's going to be a little while, but it would be great when we do have this. But really, that's all I have, just to go over the Blitz, what was collected during the Blitz surveys and those maps. And hopefully I'm getting everybody back on time, because I know it was a short talk.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to try and bring up a few slides here to talk a little bit more about the GSOB Blitz. That's kind of been a really big project for us this year, as far as expanding our capacity for survey and detection and training, and developing our capacity with volunteer force, building our capacity with potential group leaders. And I wanted to share a little bit more information about that with you. Here I go. And bring that up. Hold on, just bear with me. Sorry, I'm doing too many things at one time. Okay, can y'all see that? Hopefully.
Yes.
Thank you. All righty. So our GSOB Blitz, this was a pilot project starting this year. I'll try not to repeat much of what Kim already shared, quite a bit about it, but it's been a long time in the making. I'd say since the beginning, 16 years, 15, 16 years, because even when it had just been identified in San Diego County, the vast expanse of the problem was so evident. We just knew that we needed to build capacity to be able to really survey and monitor, to find out how far extended the problem was. But I think it was necessary that it took a while for this to develop, because we've learned, or I saw that once we got started, that so many partnerships and collaborations were required for the extraordinary success that we did have. I'm still just so humbled by the level of interest and engagement that we had. We established the Blitz to be for a 2-week period from June 1st to 15th, working with different partners as group leaders to establish their own groups in their own locations within their counties. We actually had 6 Blitz events across 5 counties in Southern California. Those groups and group leaders could select the location and the actual date. And there was nearly 200 people that participated during that 2-week time. And it was just a really exciting time. So we appreciated all of our partners, all of our group leaders, and certainly all of the participants. Kim already talked about the data that was collected and how we collected it, and what we're going to what we're working towards in being able to display that data. We did supply some of the materials and tools that were used. We tried to really make this a fun event as well. So we had our Blitz bags, which were those drawstring backpacks with a bunch of supplies, including the DBH tape and flashlights and some handout materials. The ever popular identification card with the D-shaped exit hole. And then the t-shirts on the right, there's a photo of a more recent group that went out surveying and their t-shirts. So we had someone come up with that logo, and yeah, just made it a little fun IDing. There was also a lot of really great promotion and information in the news. So a lot of our partners promoted the event. On the left, there's just some screenshots of the LA County Fire Department, the IERCD in their Instagram post, just social media posts all over the place. We had UC Agriculture and Natural Resources Communications Division put out a news release, and that ended up getting picked up by at least a couple of other news media sources. And then we had a follow-up article that came out, a blog that came out. That's what's on the right. If interested, I could include links to all those articles in the follow-up email that I'll talk about more at the end. But like I said, it was just really a big effort on all of our partners and collaborators and group leaders and such. And it was all about, the teams. Here's from the June event, some pictures of the teams. In the upper left, we have the San Bernardino team led by the IERCD crew, Kayla and Jocelyn. They were the first ones to kick us off. Then we had in the middle, top middle is our Los Angeles Blitz. To the far right on top is the San Diego Blitz. And down below left, I don't know if you can see the folks walking in a line there. They trekked out to their location, but that is with the Irvine Ranch Conservancy. And then the group photo in the middle and the bottom is with the Mountain Communities Fire Safe Council group. And I didn't have a group photo with the team's RCD group, but they were engaged. They did a lot of really intensive, just kind of hands-on, one-on-one training. They had several group leaders, and they were really trying to help train IDing efforts and spent a lot of their time working on that. So I know both Stan Hill and Joelene Tamm, who many of you know, helped lead that group. So that's really all I just wanted to really share that it was an exciting time. It was a pilot project. We've learned a lot. And in fact, that momentum was continued in the fall during October, quote unquote October. And there were, I want to say 7. I'd have to count. I didn't count beforehand, but I think there were 7 more individual blitzes that were held. I'd say from the end of October to the first or second week of November, and yeah, we were just able to continue that momentum and have some more engagement. And we are hoping to continue these efforts in the coming years and make it at least an annual event, if not a semi-annual event. And that's where we're at with that. So I'd like to introduce Rachel Burnap, who was one of our group leaders with the Los Angeles group. She's with the County Agriculture Commissioner's Office. I'm going to stop sharing here, Rachel. So as a group leader, she brings an interesting perspective to our program here as we try to continue to improve for our future events. So thank you. And Rachel, you want to go ahead?
Let's see. Can you see that?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, I'm going to try to switch over to slideshow. Okay, how's that? Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Rachel Burnap. I'm an inspector for the Los Angeles County Agricultural Commissioner Weights and Measures. And today I'm here to give you 8 tips and tricks for success for blitzing the beetle, i.e. these are all lessons learned from blitzing the beetle 4 times. Hopefully you can understand me okay. I've happened to have caught a horrendous cold after the Thanksgiving travels, but we will see what we can do. So a little bit first, I want to give a little bit of a background. So in October of 2024, the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors made a motion defending LA County's oak trees from the invasive gold-spotted oak borer. This motion was made so that it directed the county to do more GSOB outreach and GSOB workshops, amongst many other things. So meanwhile, when we were involved with UCNR and CALFIRE GSOB Blitz planning meetings, we were very excited and honored to take part in this collaboration. So we were ready and very excited. So then we held our first one in June of 2025 at the San Dimas Canyon Community Regional Park, which was located about 1 mile from the newly found Marshall Canyon GSOB infestation. That park had numerous coast live oaks that we were all very worried about, and thankfully no GSOB was found there. So when we heard that another round of GSOB blitzes were going to take place, we were like, yay, let's take advantage of this and make another motion in the county to continue to increase the awareness of GSOB. So in October 2025, the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors made a motion declaring October 2025 in Los Angeles County and supporting oak tree stewardship by combating invasive pests. So with that motion behind us, we were very excited then to host 3 more GSOB blitzes in October 2025. One was held at Malibu Creek State Park in the Santa Monica Mountains in collaboration with the Resource Conservation District of the Santa Monica Mountains. The second was at Placerita Canyon Nature Center, where a newly infested area was found. And this one was in collaboration with LA County Departments of Park and Recreation. Actually, they led that, as well as with the Placerita Canyon Nature Center docent group. And then also the third was at the East and Rice Canyon in the Santa Susana Mountains area, where the area was previously known to be infested, but we wanted to host a blitz there where people could see actual GSOB infestation, where sometimes it's easier to learn about it when you can find an amplifier to see. So let's start with the tips and tricks. Number 1, ask for help. Don't go it alone. Find your people. Well, here in LA County, we are very lucky because we have an impressive team. The Los Angeles County Community Forest Management Plan Invasive Pest Management Team is a team that has been meeting together for numerous years, once a month, to discuss ongoing and emerging invasive tree pest detections in the county. And this team consists of the Chief Sustainability Office, the Agricultural Commissioner, Weights and Measures, the Fire Forestry Division Invasive Pest Management Unit, the Department of Parks and Recreation, and also regional planning. So we had a good base team where we could draw from GSOB verifiers. We have an entomologist on staff. And we were able to draw in tree health experts from Department of Parks and Recreation. So together as a team, we had a solid base for these GSOB blitzes. Empower community partners. When you seek out collaborators, they can help lighten your load. For example, the first blitz that was held in San Dimas was done primarily only by LA County staff. And while it was, we were able to do it on our own, when we decided to do the next set of blitzes and we collaborated with the Resource Conservation District of the Santa Monica Mountains and also the Placerita Canyon Nature Center docents, it lightens the load so much more. Also, engage the landowner of your interested survey site early. I'll talk about that again in a second. This can help you with the permitting process, but also about who your collaborator is going to be, because you're also going to be collaborating with that landowner. Also, find your leaders. Encourage partners to lead the effort. You can then focus on providing support and resources, empowering others along the way. For example, for the Placerita Canyon event, the LA County Department of Parks and Recreation Natural Areas biologist and the Placerita Canyon docent group had been doing tree health surveys there at Placerita Canyon for many years. So not only were they familiar with the site, but they also knew of areas needing surveyed. So they knew they had certain areas where the oaks maybe weren't looking that great. So we were able to really focus and hone in on the day of event. And by allowing them to take the lead, I was able to step back and provide just support and resources, lightening the load also on myself. And last tip here is find a GSOB verifier. Those D holes can be really hard to find and also to verify, which is what is needed to submit a positive find for GSOB. So for us, for our events, we were lucky to have the Fire Forestry Division Invasive Pest Management Unit, who specializes in GSOB. We had them there to help verify, as well as an ACWM entomologist. Tip number 2, think in multiples. Batching equals efficiency. So with the June event behind our belts, we were thinking, hey, how many more can we do in October? So the more the merrier. Do you have the capacity to do more than one event? Can several areas be covered on separate days? But disclaimer, don't forget to ask the capacity of your team and collaborators like UCNR. Do they have the time and the energy to keep helping support these blitzes? And always roll with the momentum. As you go through each repetition of these blitzes, which is actually an advantage to doing more than one, is that you get to learn from the first and adapt with the second. Be sure to jot notes to yourself during the whole process. Learn from the process and UCNR's guidance to keep the momentum going afterward. Think about this a little bit outside the box. How can you rinse and repeat this format on your own? Tip number 3, think about your volunteers. So consider your participants' adventure levels. When thinking of survey locations, offer varying levels of terrain. But keep in mind that you will most likely survey more areas than you expect to. And higher adventure levels are always popular. In the June San Dimas event, we had made several areas where flat, grassy areas with oak trees to survey for people who may not have been used to hiking in grass or hiking up on steep terrain. But what we found was when it was time to divide up the groups, the majority of our volunteers went up to the higher levels, the steeper terrain, or areas where they had to hike farther. So we actually had underestimated our survey areas, and 2, what venture levels our volunteers wanted. Another idea is you could do a train the trainer twist. Think outside the box. What does your community need? For our second RCD SMM event held at the East and Rice Canyon, we decided to do a train the trainer type theme by having questions ready to engage our volunteers with. For example, how can they engage with their community so that when GSOB is found, their community is ready? And also, who to call in case of emergency. It can be helpful to have cell numbers for the day of the event. Keep in mind that while 911 is good, there might also be a better emergency number. For example, if you're on state park property, state park usually has a state park dispatch number to use. Tip 4, permits and paperwork. We all love these. Don't be scared. Landowner permits are necessary. So ask your team, does anyone have pre-existing permission to conduct volunteer activities? Because if they do, this can definitely help the permit process. Paperwork, liability, and photo release forms. Ask everybody involved early on if they need participants to sign liability and/or photo release forms. Is there a group form, which can make it a lot easier? Also, the landowner may also have a liability form for volunteers on their property to use. And cue the efficiency. Expect many forms for each volunteer to sign. How can you make it more streamlined? I think at one event we had 4 forms for volunteers to sign. So what we did was we pre-packaged, we put each form in each of the GSOB Blitz bags so that volunteers, when they arrived, they could just get a bag and start filling out the forms. Tip 5, photos in the press. Everyone smile and say Happy October. So assign a photographer. If a person has multiple roles the day of, it can be hard to remember to take photos. So does a collaborator have a public information supervisor or a photographer that they can come to the event and take photos for you? Or can a group leader focus on taking photos? And then expect the unexpected and be prepared for press beforehand. So who in your agency who do you need to get permission from? Who will speak if requested and what permissions are needed? After the last October Blitz events, we were approached by a journalist out of the blue wanting to be interviewed. And I think it threw us all off a little guard, and it would have been much easier had we thought about this beforehand and gotten permissions. Tip number 6, tech tips. Data quality matters. So for the first event, we did not go over a review of the data method collection, and it was a little confusing to get started. So the second round of blitzes, we started with a review, and we went over the data survey, data collection methods before we started. Go slow. It's not a race. You're wanting to collect quality data, not quantity. Plus, slower is safer. You can then make sure you're not looking for tripping hazards, hazardous trees, and so forth. Scale it up. The D-shaped card was very useful for making the size photos, the whole size photos that you need. And then power up. Don't get caught with a dead cell phone battery. Make sure you have some extra batteries the day of. Tip 7, think beyond the blitz. Use your findings. So if GSOB is found, quickly engage nearby landowners whose oaks may be at risk. This was actually a success story. Well, a success story for us in that at Placerita Canyon, there was a group of trees where the docent group and the naturalist, the biologist, had recognized as trees in decline. During the GSOB Blitz, one group looked at these trees and found that they were infested. But they were at the far end of the property, and they noticed that on the other side of the fence, there were more oak trees that also looked like in decline. But because we were able to get a hold of the landowner of that private ranch, we were able to invite him over to the Easton Rice GSOB Blitz the next day, and he was able to get some great education and also be connected with the community. Also, think about the next one. You will get requests from collaborators coming out of the woodwork. Is this something that your organization can kind of copy and make some kind of your own little version on your own? For example, LA County will be collaborating with the Santa Monica Mountains Fire Safe Council to do a couple more of our own, like small local GSOB Blitz type events in the Santa Monica Mountains coming up in the spring. And last tip, relax and have fun. You may feel a little nervous because you've worked so hard to get ready for this event. But finally, when the event comes, remember just to relax and have fun. You're there. You're there to engage with volunteers over your passion, which is the oak trees. And again, I want to say a big thank you to CALFIRE and UCNR, where this wouldn't have been possible. Any questions?
Great. That was great. Thank you, Rachel. We really appreciate the feedback from all of the group leaders from these events. And we take that into consideration as long as everyone, all the participants' input that we've received, really striving to improve not only the resources and the training that we provide our group leaders and our trainers, but the resources and the experience that we can help support for all of the volunteers. So we do really appreciate everybody's input towards these. Okay, so next, I'd like to invite Callie and Kim with the Mountain Communities Fire Safe Council to hop on and share with us. They've been organizing or meeting with different types of targeted audiences. And I asked them to just share a little bit about that, how that might be different from just general invitations to opening it up to volunteers, and some important findings they discovered with that. So thank you for joining us, Callie.
Thanks, Jan. I do have my colleague Kim Fryer as well as Jan Scott sitting here to my left. They will speak momentarily and I'll point the camera at them. We are the Mountain Communities Fire Safe Council. We are located up in Idlewild. Over the past few years, we have had funding through various grantors, CALFIRE, as well as through the National Forest Foundation, to tackle some GSOB issues, both as a matter of forest health and wildfire prevention, being that, you know, these big dying or dead oak trees are certainly hazardous fuel loads. We primarily work with our local homeowners, so they tend to be, you know, individual parcels, regular backyards, as they were for the most part. We had been contacted in the spring for the original round of the bio blitzes, and we ended up actually partnering with Callie at the Riverside County Open Space District. We did our first GSOB blitz. That was one of the photos I believe Jan shared with you previously, down at the Lake Skinner multi-species preserve. And the reason that we were looking to perform a blitz outside of our normal audience, which would be those homeowners or landowners here in the mountaintop areas of San Jacinto Mountains, we, through our previous funding, have already collected data on approximately 4,000 trees in our neighborhoods. So we took these blitz opportunities as a chance to sort of expand our outreach and educational ventures. So it was great being down at Lake Skinner. That is a multi-species preserve managed by the county that's typically closed to the public. I'm happy to report that we did not find GSOB down there because truthfully, it turned out there weren't that many oaks. So what we learned from that is that, you know, we should check first to make sure that there are going to be suitable trees to survey. But, you know, like Rachel said, we were really trying to think outside of the box and think about some different locations or some different audiences that, you know, we could collect some data from where we didn't already have it as part of the course of one of our previous grants. So, you know, I was thinking about our service area up here on the mountaintop. And if you look at where we operate, you can see on the map, literally our tribal reservations are our native neighbors. Their land is cut out of my service area because we do not, or had not in the past, engaged with them, and we were not providing them any sort of service. So I reached out to the environmental assistant at Santa Rosa, which is a band of Cahuilla Indians here on Santa Rosa Mountain in the San Jacintos. And I'm pleased to say that we hosted a GSOB Blitz. It was supposed to be part of October, but it was truthfully November by the time we got to it. And I think that was probably one of our more successful events. So what was great about that was that it was an opportunity to engage with some folks that we don't typically talk to, but who are obviously a very important part of what's happening here on this mountain. These tribal lands are surrounding our communities. The tribal nation people have been here and have been managing these forests for, centuries longer than any of us have been. So it was important to get that door open and really start to facilitate that relationship. What I can say about that Blitz was we had, probably 22 or 23 participants. More than half of them were children, little kids. And we love doing GSOB hunting with the little kids. Their eyesight is better than mine, and they get so excited. You hand them a red crayon, and they're just going to go absolutely bonkers. Now, of course, we have adults who have experience who are then verifying that data before we submitted it. But it's really always such a treat. And my colleague Jan will tell you about another sort of survey activity that we did with some other kids in a moment. But it's always so refreshing to get the youth involved. I would say that at Santa Rosa, most of the kids were sort of between the ages of 8 and 12, maybe even a little younger, a couple of them. But, it's exciting to get them engaged because then, little kids, they're going to go back to their parents and they're going to start asking the why questions and the how. And hopefully that's going to engage the adults in the community a little bit more as well. Unfortunately, working with a lot of kids is like herding cats. And due to time constraints and sort of keeping everybody organized, we only collected data on maybe 6 or 7 canyon live oaks out there. But I feel that the discussion that getting the message out there sometimes is almost as important in some of these communities as the actual data collection itself. The other idea that I had was that, at least when some of the folks I know graduated from high school, there was a community service or a volunteer requirement that some teens needed to secure a secondary school diploma. So I reached out to our local, 2 local high schools, one here in Anza on the mountain and one down in Hemet that our local students attend, trying to see if there were any teenagers who maybe wanted to meet any requirements that they had to fulfill for graduation, or maybe just thought that they'd like to volunteer because it looks good on a college application or so on. We spent so much effort. There were flyers, there were emails, there was the guidance departments at both schools. I had local kids trying to tell their friends. I am devastated to report that we had 1 teenager show up for that high school Blitz. And we had 1 teenager register. Yeah, Kim corrected me. We had 1 teenager register for that Blitz. And I came over here on that Saturday morning hoping to meet with him because I was going to run the Blitz even if it was just one-on-one, and they did not show up. So, that was 1 really successful event at Santa Rosa and 1 terribly unsuccessful event with the high school students. We're going to make strides to try and get into that sort of teenage demographic through a couple of other avenues. There is a large homeschooling group here on the Hill. There are a couple other youth groups that are orchestrated by some of the local churches. So we're going to try that approach for our next opportunity, because I hope that we're just going to continue to do bio blitzes over and over and over again We love them. We love them. So, and they're helpful, right? So that is what I wanted to report on. I'm going to turn this and point it at my colleague, Kim. Are you there? There you
I'm
are.
there.
And Kim will tell you about something.
Yeah. We were, after we did the October Blitz that actually happened in November, Jan and I joined the High Valley Oak Reserve out, I think it's on Twin Pines Road out near Poppet Flats area. And it was a lot of fun to, get out with a different group of people. A lot of the people were very experienced. They were biologists from San Diego and various other schools. But the thing that I really got encouraged about was that there were a few community members who just showed up. And the great thing about that was it gave me an opportunity to connect with them and let them know that we're available to help them when it comes to, they were going home with their little cards and they were going to go check their own trees. Fortunately, unfortunately, we didn't find any GSOB holes in those oaks. So they were determined they were going to find some somewhere. So we sent them off with their cards. And I also gave them a business card and said, if you find something and you want us to verify it, give us a call because they're in our service area. And I stressed the importance of, talking to their neighbors and explaining what the problem is, because it's a lot better coming from a neighbor than it is from a total stranger that shows up at your door. And hopefully that word will spread. So it's those Callie calls them, it's those kind of ambushes that seem to be the most successful for me, is just making eye contact with people. And, if they're sitting there looking like they're willing to listen to me for about 5 minutes, then I'm all over them. And, hopefully they tell two friends and they tell two friends, and, the community connection is what's essential. So, we really enjoyed that. And we look forward to doing some more of these GSOB blitzes because, I know my colleague Jan here, she, it's kind of a lonely existence going out there by yourself looking at a tree trunk. So, if we can connect with the communities in different ways, then all the better. And that's pretty much it for me.
Right, I'm going to pass it on to Jan there.
Good morning. One of the things that we did, we're in an area where there are a lot of summer camps, and that obviously they have a lot of kids there. And we were able to go to a Girl Scout camp and do a Blitz event where we separated the kids into the girls into two groups, one from middle schools and one from high schools. And surprisingly, it was an area that had no black oaks. And up here, we really just are concentrating on the black oaks. So we had all the kids standing around this big canyon oak, and it turned out to be full of GSOB. And so that was very exciting for them. The other thing, so I think, summer camps might be a great place to offer our services to go to and give programs on GSOBs throughout Southern California. The other thing that I noticed in, Callie was talking about the Santa Rosa Indian Reservation, and what we did there, we actually had 4 people signed up, and then we had 20 odd people come, and most of them, as she said, were children. And we hadn't thought about separating the kids out from the adults, but it sort of ended up that way. And I ended up with quite small children, I think even 5 years old, one of them. You have to approach it entirely differently because these kids they don't know the difference between bark and wood. And you have, so it's if you're going to have a group with a lot of kids, I think it's a really good idea to separate it out so that one group with the adults can really explain the whole process. And with the kids, you want to talk about entirely different things. So that's my input for working with different groups of people.
I don't really have anything further to add. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sorry that we didn't have any slides, but to be honest, I kind of felt weird about just showing a bunch of pictures of people's children. Even though we had signed waivers, So yeah, I look forward to any questions anybody wants to ask. Leave it in the Q&A. Otherwise, reach out to us by phone or email anytime. Happy to help. Thanks for having us, Jan.
Well, thank you very much to Callie, Kim, and Jan. We appreciate you sharing that information and that, as Rachel mentioned too, just really thinking outside of the box and different ways to connect with our communities and engage our communities and keep that awareness growing, which we all want to do. So we appreciate your leadership with those communities and sharing those ideas with us. Definitely. Okay, so if you can take a moment and maybe look in the Q&A to see if there's any specific questions for you, that'd be great. We're going to move on now to a presentation that Joelene Tamm put together for those of you who were here at the beginning. She is a member of she works with the La Jolla Band of Luiseño Indians and here in San Diego near Palomar Mountain. And she's also getting advanced degrees at UC Riverside and works with Mark Hoddle in his lab and his work. And she is providing us a GSOB research update. Unfortunately, she got called up to some specialized training up in Sacramento. She's sorry she couldn't be here today, but she asked if I would go ahead and share her information and her slides. She gave me really good notes. So I'll be sharing that information. And then again, if there's questions, put them in the Q&A and we can follow up with that. So with that being said, I think Bea is helping me with sharing the slides. So next slide. Yeah, next slide. All right. So I'm just going to read it verbatim. Our research aims to solve two problems, one biological and one economic, with a single solution. Biologically, human transport of firewood is the primary driver of GSOB expansion. We need to stop the movement of untreated wood by recreationists and firewood users. Economically, we are missing a huge opportunity. We are currently importing 100% of our kiln-dried wood. This research provides the scientific validation needed to support a local wood products industry. By proving that this heat treatment works, we enable local businesses to utilize grant funds to process local trees. This creates a closed-loop system. We reduce the vector of spread while generating a premium value-added product for the local economy. Next slide. Oops. Currently, we lack a verified method to sanitize firewood infested with GSOB. To address this, we conducted sterilization experiments using logs instrumented with independent temperature probes. This allowed us to monitor the crucial difference between bark and core temperatures. We chose to test USDA protocol T314-A, which requires holding a core temperature of 60 degrees Celsius for 60 minutes. We selected this specifically because it is the proven standard for the emerald ash borer. Since EAB is a closely related Agrila species, we hypothesized that this standard would transfer effectively to GSOB. Next. We talk about Protocol T314-A, which was designed for emerald ash borer. It works perfectly for GSOB, but only if we treat the wood like the earth. Heating the crust, quote unquote, the bark, is easy. Heating the mantle is faster. But if you don't hold that heat until the core hits 60 degrees Celsius for a full hour, the treatment fails. Our 4-year study shows that if you hit the core, you get 100% mortality. Okay, next slide. This chart illustrates why close enough isn't good enough. At the bottom, you see our goal, protocol T13-A, or T14-A. I'm still not saying that right. T314-A achieved absolute sterility, 0 emergence. But look what happens when we cut corners on time. Simply reaching 60 degrees Celsius without holding it for the full hour allowed 12% of the samples to remain infested. While even the lower temperature treatments at 50 degrees Celsius reduced the population compared to the 57% infested rate of untreated wood, only the full 60-minute held at 60% degrees Celsius guarantees the safety of the resource. Okay, next slide. We began this pile burn that you see in the photo, this pile burn study, by attempting to quantify emergence rates in a controlled environment to model a living system to understand what would happen by burning standing infested trees. However, we found that the high moisture content of the cambium and the natural insulation of the oak bark made it difficult to achieve lethal temperatures in living hosts. While this highlighted the resilience of the trees, it shifted our primary focus to sanitation of cut material, where we found significant success. Next. We began the pile burn study by cutting down 3 infested trees and processing the lower portions into sectioned logs, which we then stacked piled with brush. We set ablaze, then encased into wooden crates to collect any emerging beetles. You can see the process there. Okay, next. The mean bark temperatures of the logs during the pile burn were 65 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes. Okay, next. Thank you. And this just shows how they collected and tallied up the emergence. She states there on the slide, 96% reduced GSOB emergence rate following the pile burn treatment. Okay, next. So the outcome, the tool. For mass sanitation of cut vegetation, pile burning remains our most cost-effective option, logistics and permits notwithstanding. The old standard. Historically, we relied on complete consumption to sanitize infested material. While 100% effective, it is resource intensive and leaves the soil sterile and bare. The new strategy. Our research supports heavy charring. By sustaining a surface char for just 7 minutes, we achieved 96% mortality. The co-benefits. This is the superior ecological choice. We remove the dangerous flashy fuels while leaving the large woody debris intact. The result. This approach mitigates the pest problem without stripping the land, simultaneously reducing smoke emissions, preventing erosion, and retaining critical habitat for the forest food web. So this was the outcome for the pile burn research outreach. Next. So cultural burning and prescribed fire. As we look at broad-scale land management, it's important to state that specific research on how every tool impacts GSOB is still ongoing and, in some cases, inconclusive. However, we don't need to wait for those results to take meaningful action based on what we already know about forest ecology. decades of study have proven that forest thinning and prescribed fire are two of the most effective ways to increase overall forest health and resilience. At an absolute minimum, reintroducing cultural or prescribed fire into these landscapes will help mitigate the damages from GSOB by reducing the hazardous fuel loads from dead trees. And there's a strong scientific basis for this approach. Research has already established that intentional fire, along with its smoke and ash, can directly kill insects and reduce their activity and damage. Next. Our first paper was published in the Pan-Pacific Entomologist just last month. The first occurrence of the parasitoid wasp, I'm not going to say it right, Balcha indica in California, parasitizing gold-spotted oak borer. And I will try and remember to put this information in the follow-up email that I'll be sending. So next. Native to Asia, this solitary ectoparasitoid appeared in Virginia in 1994. Previously only recorded as naturalized in only 5 eastern states, it is a documented natural enemy of the emerald ash borer. As we look at GSOB management, tracking the movement of this agrylus predator may help clue us about the movement of the agrylus hosts themselves. Next. Okay. Bea, I don't know if you can, I forgot that there was this YouTube video. Okay, thank you. So hopefully you can see that. While documenting symptoms of imminent mortality on Quercus agrifolia, heavily infested with argutatus in North San Diego, she observed a female B. indica oviposting in the bark. And I know it's a little wobbly, but we'll just leave it here because you do see this towards the end. And it says on this, noted on the slide that this is this first state record of this parasitoid.
As you see the gaster or the abdomen of the wasp turning, that's when she was, laying her eggs. There's still about 1 more minute of video. I don't know if you're gonna.
Oh, okay. I don't know that there's a whole lot more to see on this if we want to move on.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So WASP identification. We used a combination of visual, physical, and molecular evidence to confirm our findings, ensuring the accuracy of our discovery. Visual ID, initially made by Gary Gibson. Balca are characteristically identified as a eupelmids with trident pattern on pronotum. Balca indica is the only Balca species established in North America. And my apologies if I'm not pronouncing this right. Please, someone, Bea or Kim, correct me. Molecular conformation compared California wasps with specimens from Maryland. The results showed that they were 100% identical. Okay, next slide. The key message, B. indica is much more widespread than previously known to be only established in 5 eastern states. Using museum records and community observation platforms and its presence in California is part of a larger ongoing range expansion. Map there. Okay, next. One of the long-term hopes for managing GSOB is biological control, finding a natural enemy that can help keep its populations in check. The big question is, what already eats GSOB? We know of several natural enemies, many of which are tiny parasitoid wasps. These are insects like Balca indica and trichogrammatid wasps. They act like something out of a sci-fi movie, laying their eggs inside GSOB eggs or larvae, and their young consume the host from the inside out. Then there are the direct predators. The most obvious is the woodpecker, which is the major predator of larvae under the bark. But there are also other insects, like certain species of click beetles and bark-gnawing beetles that hunt GSOB in its galleries. Finally, on a microscopic level, we have predatory mites like straw itch mites that can attack the immature stages. So while a whole suite of natural enemies already attack GSOB, none are currently able to control a major outbreak. The ongoing research is focused on finding a specialist, an enemy that is highly effective and safe to introduce to our ecosystem. Next slide. So some take-home messages, and boy, did she really emphasize this when I spoke with her, and others have stated this too. We need more research. This is still critical, even though we've been at this for, over 16 years. More research is needed. So we need to really seek that out and advocate for that. So firewood sanitation, we are validating heat protocols to prevent the human-assisted spread of invasive insects and create a value-added local industry, supporting grant-funded wood product initiatives. Pile burning optimization, surface charring, 90% efficacy, offers land managers a cost-effective sanitation tool that meets resource objectives like erosion control and habitat retention. Landscape management, we are still investigating broadcast prescribed fire as a landscape level tool, targeting GSOB's biological vulnerability during pupation in the outer bark. And biosecurity indicators, the presence of Balca indica, a GSOB parasitoid in 13 states, serves as a bioindicator, revealing potential pest transport pathways. Next slide. This research would not be possible without so many amazing people and organizations. Thank you for your time and support today. If we have time, she said she could answer a few questions. Of course, she can't be here. So please go ahead and ask your questions. Put them in the Q&A. If anybody here, any of our presenters are able to answer those questions, several folks are familiar with her work, Jolene's work. Otherwise, we will share those questions with her and get those answers to you afterwards. Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciated that she still was able to share this information with her. I know she's been doing extensive research. And I'm aware too, just kind of as a follow-up, others that are doing some research. We know that NASA and JPL are doing some research with some colleges on some broad scale, landscape scale survey and detection using different technologies. So yeah, please be sure to, what do I want to say, to subscribe to our email list for all the news and information on the latest information and resources that come out. All right. Thank you for your help, Bea, with that.
You're welcome.
Now I can go ahead and share some final information on next steps. With you. Thank you all for hanging in there with us today. All right, just a few more slides before we close things down. So some next steps, some things that we're looking at with our program is conducting, organizing and conducting more trainings, both train the trainer, training groups, getting geared up for, as I mentioned, some more GSOB Blitz events. And there is an online course now. We are going to be working at getting some CEU credit associated with that. So again, stay tuned. Other resources that we'll be developing, Callie mentioned earlier about, and the others mentioned the summer camps. We have produced a camp guidelines or activity for Goldspotted Oak Borer for campgrounds and youth. So we will be when it was reviewed, there were several comments and concerns. So we'll be looking to improving on that or getting some more pilot information from it. So there's lots in the works. And as been mentioned throughout, we'll be continuing to build our networks and develop partnerships. It's just so critical. I hope that's been a take-home message for you today from what you've heard from everybody on all levels. The partnerships and building that network and communications is very critical. We do have handouts and resources, the ID card with the D-shaped exit hole. A lot of people have mentioned that as well. I don't know how well known it is, but we do have a double-sided one-page flyer for best management practice for infested wood that's available. We do have some GSOB ID kits. They're small boxes with a sample of bark with a D-shaped exit hole, with a beetle, and some other information in it. Very small boxes, just identification used for a training resource. We only have a limited supply of those, so they're really meant for like group leaders or departments, folks who are going to be encountering the general public or be working with a team, a staff where they need to show this is what an actual D-shaped exit hole looks like in the bark kind of thing. But if you're interested in any of these supplies or any others that you see under resources on our website, please feel free to reach out to me because we keep those supplies until you hear otherwise. We keep those supplies stocked and we try to keep them updated as well. Now, this screenshot of a brochure on the far right, we also try to stay up to speed on other emerging forest tree pests. This brochure addresses and introduces us to two other pests, South American palm weevil and invasive shot hole borers, which you might be have heard of and be familiar with, that are impacting Southern California as well as gold-spotted oak borer. There's also Mediterranean oak borer that our team is involved with. That's still up in Northern California, north of the Bay Area, I believe. But so we do have some resources in this other event. I know Randall has a lot of resources available for invasive shot hole borer. So we're here to support all of your efforts in working, in different outreach activities within your communities, within your departments and organizations, as well as just doing your programmatic work within your organizations as well. So please let us know how we can help you. So we are going to go ahead and share the final poll can't see my screen, my chat pod, but I think Randall's gonna post some of the evaluation links to evaluations. If you're interested in any kind of continuing education, please take that survey, that quiz, because that's where we're going to get your name and your contact information to be able to share a verification record of your participation.
The feedback evaluation survey, as well as the link to the CEU final quiz, are both posted in the chat at this point.
Great. Thank you, Randall. And slowly to wrap things up, if we have a few more minutes at the end, if any of the presenters want to address any questions that they may see in the Q&A verbally, I'll open it up. But just real quickly, I want to thank everybody who was here today to make this symposium possible. We appreciate everyone's updates, and hopefully we all took some great lessons learned from their lessons learned. And I want to thank our partners, both the public and private, the ones that we have long time established, and those that we've yet to meet and connect with. But here's just a few, and these go across multiple counties, and some statewide. So there's multiple fire safe councils, there's multiple parks and conservancies, and tribes that we work with, lots of departments with both CALFIRE and Forest Service, certainly several forests, and county ag commissioners' offices and parks and rec, and fire authorities that are doing forestry work. So many partners. That network is just vital. Can't say enough about that. So thank you, everybody. And if anyone's interested in looking to partner with us for something, please, reach out to us. Let us know. So thank you. There's a lot of folks engaged that their contact information was made available on their closing slides. Here again is my information. We invite you to go to gsob.org. Now, just to know that University of Agriculture and Natural Resources recently went through conducted a transition earlier this year with our website platform. So we're working on some updates to our website. So there'll be some changes coming. That's in the process, and hopefully getting some of these pictures of all the GSOB activity, the GSOB Blitz activity going. And as Kim mentioned, we'll be uploading that dashboard of the mapping, and I will be sending out a follow-up email, which will have lots of links, an invitation to subscribe to our email list if you have not already. And again, I invite you to reach out if you have any questions. Don't
Jan?
hesitate. Yes.
Did you post the poll?
Oh, I haven't. Thank you. I forgot I needed to do that. Let me stop sharing. And thank you for reminding me.
And while Jan's pulling up the poll, I just want those of you who are taking the quiz, not the poll, but the quiz, there'll be one or more of us staying online in case you're having some difficulties and want to put concerns or questions in the chat.
And are there any other questions in the Q&A, Julie, that we might address now?
There are quite a few, and I would ask any of the GSOB experts, please, to glance at them and try to answer them. So there were most, I think there are 9 open questions now. Not all of them are actual questions, so it shouldn't take that long. Thanks, Kim. Kim jumped on it.
Okay, great. So yes, please go ahead and go, those of you that are here, go through the post-webinar poll. Again, you'll have to scroll down. I'll give it another minute and then we can share results. We've got, since we were just read, got done a little early. And here's our results. Great. All right, I'd like to open it up to anybody else. Or any of our speakers, is there any more you would like to share or address?
No, I would say if people have questions for Joelene regarding the presentation that Jan delivered on Jolene Tamm's research, you can either put it in the chat and then we can send it to her and try to get them answered for you.
Yep. All right. I see a hand raised. Hold on. Let me close this poll. So I'm going to need to ask for help. Is there a way I can open it up for those that have the hands raised? I don't know that I can. I don't think
I'm looking at the list and I don't even see a hand
I
raised.
don't see it. Yeah, I thought I saw a hand raised, so that's why I said something, but maybe we're just getting a high five, huh?
That must be it.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to give you a little bit of your time back. I'm going to go ahead and stay on. Anybody who else wants to stay on with me is welcome to. But thank you again to all of our presenters and to Randall and Julie. And most of all, thank you to everyone who attended today. We really appreciate your engagement and your interest. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.